Chapter 797. Yi Zissou said angrily, "What are you? If you don't tell me the truth, I'll send you to the police station immediately." "No, Second Mississippi." Xiaofang hurriedly knelt a few steps forward and hugged Yi Zissou's calf. She cried and begged, "Second Miss, I beg you, please forgive me. I was just confused for a moment." Yi Zissou's expression changed. She raised her arm and slapped Xiaofang hard on the face. She said sternly, "You caused me so much trouble, and now you want to erase everything by saying that you were confused for a moment? Do you think I'm a fool?" Xiaofang cried with a bright red handprint on her face. She didn't defend herself and just kept kowtowing, begging Yi Zissou to let her go. Ji Yuqi's smile deepened. As she expected, Chen Tingfang and her daughter were unwilling to admit defeat and started to fight back. "What are you doing?" Ji Bowen appeared at the staircase with a gloomy face. His sharp gaze swept over Xiaofang's red and swollen cheeks. He looked at Yi Zissou with even more displeasure. "Miss, a rich man's daughter, actually hit and scolded a servant. Even he heard it from upstairs. What a scandal." Zissou, who had always been gentle and magnanimous, seemed to have changed into a different person. He was really disappointed. Speaking of which, this was also Chen Tingfang's responsibility as a mother. Thinking of this, he turned to look at Chen Tingfang, who was standing next to him. The displeasure in his eyes was self-evident. Chen Tingfang saw that the situation wasn't good. She quickly put on a guilty expression and deliberately scolded, "Zissou, what are you doing? Why are you making such a ruckus?" Yi Zissou's eyelashes fluttered and tears filled her eyes. She said pitifully, "Mom, Uncle, I found out something, so I got too excited." "I'm sorry." Chen Tingfang asked in surprise, "What is it? Is it related to Xiaofang?" Yi Zissou's eyes were brimming with tears. She bit her lips and wanted to say something but couldn't. She could only stomp her feet and say in embarrassment and anger, "Xiaofang, you say it. Say what you did in front of everyone again." Xiaofang's entire body trembled. She lay on the ground, not daring to raise her head or speak. She could only kowtow and beg for mercy. Ji Bowen frowned and scolded in a deep voice, "Stand up and explain everything clearly." Ji Bowen rarely lost his temper at the servants, but once he lost his temper, no one dared to provoke him. Xiaofang knew his character very well, so she didn't dare to escape anymore. She stood up timidly, lowered her head, and stammered, "Master, madam, it's my fault. I added hallucinogens in Second Miss perfume, which made her make a fool of herself at the party. It's all my fault. I'm sorry." Ji Bowen's pupils shrank, and his face was so gloomy that water could be squeezed out of it. Chen Tingfang rushed up with red eyes. "You damned woman, how dare you harm my daughter? I'll fight it out with you." Mom, don't be agitated." Yi Zissou quickly stopped her and looked at Ji Bowen with expectation and trust. "Mom, I believe that uncle will definitely stand up for me." Ji Bowen's expression relaxed, and his tone became even more severe. "Xiaofang, why did you do this?" Xiaofang shrank back and said in a trembling voice, I hate Second Mississippi. I accidentally broke a vase a few days ago, and she asked the butler to deduct half of my salary. I worked so hard to earn my hard-earned money, and she deducted it just like that. I hate her." Ji Bowen called the butler over, and the butler testified that such a thing had indeed happened. Ji Yuqi, who had been watching the drama for a long time, raised her eyebrows. The motive for the crime sounded quite reasonable. She glanced at Yi Zissou, who had an aggrieved expression that said, "I was framed," and then at Chen Tingfang, who looked furious. The corners of her lips curled up slightly, and she said gently, "Dad, I have a few questions to ask Xiaofang." "Can I?" Ji Bowen nodded. In fact, he also had doubts about this matter, and he wanted to hear his daughter's opinion. Ji Yuqi's voice suddenly became stern. "Xiaofang, raise your head." Xiaofang's body trembled. She slowly raised her head, and her eyes were red. She looked a little pitiful. Ji Yuqi looked straight into her eyes and said, since you've admitted that you drugged her, tell me, where did you buy the medicine, when did you buy it, when did you drug her? Did anyone testify for you? How did second miss find out? The series of questions shot at Xiao Fang like bullets. She couldn't help clenching her fingers in panic and mumbling, I contacted the seller through the internet. I bought it on the 22nd and drugged it on the 23rd. No one testified. I've been hiding it from everyone. As she spoke, she knelt on the ground with a thud and sobbed, eldest young miss, I didn't know that the matter would blow up to this extent. I was scared, so I confessed my mistake to second young Mississippi master. Madam, I've let the G family down. I've let second miss down. Please spare me on account of my loyalty and diligence in the past few years. Ji Yuqi sneered. Your salary was deducted because of your mistake, and you're waiting for an opportunity to take revenge on your master. You call this loyalty? Xiao Fang, when you did all this, have you ever thought about your parents? They'll be laughed at for having a daughter like you. They'll never be able to raise their heads. You still have a brother in high school, right? If he knows that his sister is in prison and the family's source of income is cut off, will he still be in the mood to study? No, he'll drop out of school and go out to work at a young age. He'll become the second you. Ji Yuqi's questions were like iron hammers pounding on Xiao Fang's heart. Even though she had received a sum of money to ensure that her family would not have to worry about food and clothing, she still collapsed to the ground in fear. However, she had already come this far and could no longer turn back. She gritted her teeth, kneeled a few steps, and threw herself at Ji Yuqi's feet. She cried and begged, eldest miss, please spare me. You were the one who told me to do this. I was only following your orders. Please don't leave me alone. Ji Yuqi stared at Xiao Fang expressionlessly. Her eyes were getting colder. Xiao Fang, I've already given you a chance to tell the truth, but you're so stubborn. Don't blame me for being cold-blooded and heartless. Yi Zissou smirked proudly. Humph, Ji Yuqi, let's see what else you have to say. Chen Tingfang clenched her fists in anger. She had only wanted Xiao Fang to take the blame for drugging her, but now Xiao Fang had implicated Ji Yuqi. It was obvious that Zissou had instructed her. Zissou was an idiot. Why didn't she understand that Ji Bowen doted on Ji Yuqi so much that he wouldn't believe a servant's words? This would only backfire and make Ji Bowen suspect them instead. As expected, Ji Bowen, who had always been lenient to his servants, was furious. He kicked Xiao Fang's shoulder and sent her to the ground. You evil servant, how dare you frame Miss? Old Wang, call the police immediately and send this evil servant to the police station. Xiao Fang was in so much pain that she couldn't move at all. She was still shouting that she was innocent. Ji Bowen was furious and ordered the butler to gag her mouth. Even after the police car left with Xiao Fang, Ji Bowen's anger still hadn't subsided. Ji Yuqi hugged his arm and acted coquettishly and cutely. Finally, he couldn't help but laugh. Ji Yuqi leaned against his arm and said emotionally, Dad, thank you for believing in me. Ji Bowen stroked her hair lovingly. You're my daughter. Of course I believe in you. He had already informed the police chief and asked them to interrogate Xiao Fang. If Xiao Fang was stubborn and refused to let go of Yuqi, he would let her know that the Ji family wasn't to be trifled with. Ji Yuqi's eyes turned red and she mumbled, Dad, I must have offended Xiao Fang somehow. That's why she framed me like this. Ji Bowen's heart skipped a beat. Yuqi was innocent and couldn't see through the strangeness of the matter, but he did. Xiao Fang said that she felt guilty and confessed to Yi Zissou about drugging her. If Yuqi was really behind it, why didn't Xiao Fang say it from the beginning? Why did she wait until she was convicted of drugging Yuqi? If he didn't trust Yuqi and Yuqi was accused of framing her sister, then Yi Zissou would be the one to benefit from this matter. His feelings told him that Yi Zissou was a kind girl and wouldn't do such a thing. However, his rationality told him that Yi Zissou was suspicious. If Yi Zissou had directed this show, then did Chen Tingfang know about it? Ji Bowen's feelings were complicated. In the end, his feelings overwhelmed his rationality and he convinced himself that Chen Tingfang and her mother were innocent. However, there was a thorn in his heart. Chen Tingfang knew that things weren't going well, so she acted even more submissive and tried to please Ji Bowen and Ji Yuqi gently. Ji Yuqi didn't want to see her fake smile, so she found an excuse to leave. When Ji Yuqi arrived at the mansion, Ruru was carrying 2 bags of trash. When she saw Ji Yuqi, she quickly threw down the trash bags and walked up to her with a smile. "Chi-Chi, you're here. Is Yi Zissou in big trouble?" Ji Yuqi pursed her lips and smiled. She briefly explained what happened in the Ji family and said, "Although we won this time, we can't let our guard down. They won't admit defeat so easily." Ruru nodded heavily. She admired Ji Yuqi very much. At first, Yuqi guessed that Yi Zissou was going to use perfume to plot against her, so she asked Ruru to switch the perfume with the knockout powder. She also guessed that Yi Zissou wouldn't let it go and might find someone to take the blame. Therefore, she asked Ruru to investigate the situation of all the servants in the house. That was how Yuqi knew about Xiaofang's family. Even if Ruru didn't see it with her own eyes, she could imagine the scene of Yi Zissou's failure. Ji Yuqi looked in the direction of the bedroom. "Ruru, how is Shenjia?" "Mr. Shen is in good spirits, but he doesn't have a good appetite. He only ate half a bowl of rice for lunch. Oh, by the way, Mr. Shen asked me to burn the clothes he changed into. Those clothes were stained with blood and bullet holes." Ruru's heart was pounding when she burned them. She moved closer to Ji Yuqi and whispered, "Chi-Chi, that person was shot. Could he be from the underground organization? Will we get into trouble?" "No, he won't. Shenjia is a good person. Someone wanted to harm him, so he got injured." Ji Yuqi's tone was particularly serious. "Ruru, he is my friend. He won't harm us. Come and see." Xinwu 799. Chapter 798. Xiaoro knew what she meant and hurriedly said, "I understand. I won't tell anyone." Ji Yuqi smiled gratefully and then asked Xiaoro to find some men's clothes, wash them, and hang them on the clothesline in the yard. Xiaoro didn't understand her intention. She blinked mysteriously. "Fishing. This is the bait." Xiaoro touched her head. She still didn't understand, but she believed in Yuqi. Stepping into the room, hot air hit her in the face. Shenjia was lying on the mahogany recliner with his eyes closed. His long eyelashes cast a faint shadow under his eyelids. His handsome face was like a sculpture. Ji Yuqi walked to his side gently and bent down to take the book on his lap. As soon as her fingers touched the book, he opened his eyes. His pair of black gem-like eyes didn't have the confusion of just waking up. There was only innate coldness and indifference. Her heart couldn't help but tremble. She pursed her lips and smiled. "You're awake?" "Yes." An imperceptible warmth appeared in his cold eyes. Actually, he hadn't fallen asleep. He even heard her and Xiaoro's conversation outside the door. She trusted him. This knowledge made his mood exceptionally good. Ji Yuqi put the book aside and took a blanket to cover his legs. She said gently, "I heard from Xiaoro that you don't have a good appetite. I know a good private restaurant. What do you want to eat? I'll get them to send it over." Shenjia's thin lips curved slightly. "Do you know how to make century egg and lean meat porridge?" Ji Yuqi raised her eyebrows and smiled. "Yes. Wait for a while. I'll be back soon." The soft and glutinous century egg and lean meat porridge was cooked quickly. There was also a plate of cold cucumber and a plate of stir-fried broccoli on the table. The emerald green color and fragrant aroma aroused Shenjia's appetite. One look and one could tell that he was well educated. Even though his chest was injured, his sitting posture was extremely upright and his movements were extremely elegant, just like a high and mighty aristocrat. Watching him eat was a kind of enjoyment. Ji Yuqi sat opposite him and rested her chin on one hand. She didn't hide the smile on her face. She was very happy that his appetite had been stimulated. Under a certain someone's burning gaze, Shenjia was not embarrassed at all. He casually and elegantly enjoyed the delicious food. As the warm porridge entered his esophagus, even his heart was warmed. He occasionally raised his eyes to meet her gaze, and the smile on her face became even more brilliant. Her relaxed eyebrows seemed to be sprinkled with sunlight, and her exquisite facial features had a different kind of peerless beauty. He couldn't help but curl his lips in response to this extremely sincere smile, faintly feeling that something was out of his control. The setting sun shone softly on the window lattice, and the room was filled with light and dreamy music. Ji Yuqi and Shinjo were lying on two reclining chairs side by side, each holding a book in their hands. The atmosphere was indescribably warm and harmonious. After dinner, Ji Yuqi called her father and told her that she would stay in the old house tonight and would not go home. Before ending the call, Ji Yuqi's father suddenly said, "Chi-Chi, no matter what happens, Dad will believe in you." Ji Yuqi thought that he was talking about what happened in the morning and felt very touched. Then, she called Ruru, who had already returned to the villa, and reminded her of some things. When she called, she didn't have any intention of avoiding suspicion in front of Shinja. Shinja also acted as if he hadn't heard anything and browsed the news on his phone. When he saw the headline, "Miss G made a fool of herself at the ball, the mastermind behind it is Big Miss G," his brows furrowed slightly. Ji Yuqi hung up the phone. Seeing that Shinja didn't look too good, she thought that his wound was hurting again and hurriedly brought him painkillers. Shinja shook his head and pursed his thin lips. He wanted to say something but stopped. She had a feeling that he didn't want her to be hurt. The way he looked at her was a little strange. It seemed to be sympathy. Ji Yuqi blinked in confusion. "What's wrong with you?" Shinja wanted to hide it from her, but on second thought, if he didn't tell her now, she might be even more hurt if she found out about it at another occasion. He handed his phone to her and stared at her with his dark eyes, hiding an imperceptible worry. Ji Yuqi took the phone curiously and glanced at it briefly. The maid, Xiaofang, admitted that Ji Yuqi had instructed her to frame Yizisu. Xiaofang also said that Ji Yuqi had always been secretly in love with Jiang Tianhao, but Jiang Tianhao's heart was on Yizisu, so Ji Yuqi deliberately played tricks to embarrass them. Ji Yuqi's expression didn't change, but the little person in her heart was laughing coldly. Humph, Xiaofang had already been taken to the police station. She couldn't have leaked the information to the media, unless someone impersonated her and threw this so-called evidence to the media. Yizisu was really ruthless. After one failed move, she came up with another. Shinja had been paying attention to her expression. Seeing her calm face, a look of admiration flashed in his eyes. He said lightly, "Do you need my help?" Ji Yuqi was slightly stunned. In her previous life, whenever she was in trouble, Shinja was always the first to appear in front of her and solve it for her. In this life, she didn't want to implicate him, and she didn't want him to see her vicious and cold-blooded. She pursed her lips and shook her head gently. "No need. I'll handle this matter myself. You should rest. I live next door. If you need anything, just call me." The snow-white walls, the empty corridor, and the sound of footsteps became clearer. Ji Yuqi stood at the end of the corridor in a white hospital gown and looked at the familiar figure walking out of the smoke. Her heart beat rapidly and her throat tightened. Shinja, she ran towards that person with ecstasy, as if she had been searching for him for thousands of years. That person turned his head. His pair of empty, gray eyes were unfocused, and the indifferent expression on his handsome face made her panic. "Shinja, your eyes?" She froze in place in shock. She reached out to grab his arm, but she grabbed empty air. His figure had quickly retreated a few meters and then disappeared into the fog. "Shinja." Ji Yuqi abruptly woke up from her dream. Her entire body was drenched in sweat, and her mind was still filled with boundless despair. She threw off the blanket and got out of bed. She ran out of the room barefoot and pounded on the door next door like a madwoman. Shinja was awakened by the woman's panicked cries. His gaze suddenly turned cold. He quickly walked to the door and opened it. Before he could open his mouth to ask what had happened, a delicate body with a cold aura had already thrown itself into his arms. She hugged him and wailed. Shenja, Shenja. She cried heartbreakingly as she called out his name over and over again. The fear, and attachment in her voice made his chest tighten uncontrollably. He slowly raised his left hand that was originally hanging stiffly by his side and wrapped it around her waist. His bottomless eyes stared at the woman in his arms. Her face was pressed against his chest, and her hot tears soaked the white bandage. His wound was throbbing with pain, but for some reason, he couldn't bear to push her away. Her cries of despair gradually weakened, turning into soft sobs. By the time Ji Yuqi completely woke up, she was already lying in Shenja's arms, sitting on the edge of his bed. Sorry, I just had a nightmare. She frantically withdrew from his arms and awkwardly wiped the tears from her face. She glanced at his chest in embarrassment and mumbled, I just touched your wound. Is it okay? Shenja looked at her red nose and red eyes like a rabbit's. He couldn't help but frown. Instead of answering, he asked, what nightmare did you have? Why are you crying like that? Of course, Ji Yuqi wouldn't tell him that she was reborn. She also wouldn't tell him that ever since she was reborn, she hadn't had a good night's sleep. Every night, she was tormented by nightmares and tortured by hatred. Her mind was constantly stretched taut, afraid that if she took one wrong step, she would step into the trap that Chen Tingfang and her daughter had set for her. Every time she faced Yi Zhisu and Jiang Tianhao, she had to use all her rationality to suppress the resentment in her heart. She also had to pretend that she didn't know anything. No one knew how hard it was for her. She lowered her eyes slightly to hide the bone-piercing sadness in her eyes. The corners of her lips stiffened as she said in a low voice, I dreamt that a monster was chasing me. I asked you for help and called out your name loudly. Her voice became lower and lower as it trembled. But you shook off my hand and disappeared. Under the light, she exuded an indescribable sadness. The strong loneliness in her words made his heart tremble. His chest felt stuffy, and his heart seemed to beat even harder. He couldn't help but reach out his hand. His warm palm landed on her soft hair and gently pressed it. His deep voice was as pleasant as a cello. Don't cry. Dreams are all fake. After saying that, he seemed to sense that something was wrong. He quickly retracted his hand and supported his chin with his left hand. He coughed softly, and the tips of his fair ears were dyed a light pink. Fortunately, Ji Yuqi had her head lowered and didn't notice. The next morning, when Ji Yuqi saw Shenja, she suddenly recalled the scene of her crying in his arms last night. Her cheeks instantly burned. Fortunately, Shenja didn't mention a word. It was as if nothing had happened last night. The two of them finished breakfast in silence. Ji Yuqi tidied up the kitchen and saw Shenja standing in the courtyard. Beside him, little yellow flowers were blooming around the 4 seasons osmanthus. The cold fragrance was refreshing. He was wearing a white coat and black trousers. The contrasting colors of white and black made him look even more beautiful. He leaned lazily and elegantly against the tree trunk. His gaze was distant, as if he was thinking about something. Seeing his obsidian-like eyes, Ji Yuqi's heart trembled. She quickly lowered her head to hide her emotions. After a while, she looked up and revealed a gentle smile. Shenja, I have 2 classes in the morning. I'll go to school. I'll be back early. What do you want to eat for lunch? I'll buy it on the way back. Shenja slowly retracted his gaze from the sky and looked at her intently. Do you know how to make Westlake vinegar fish and mushroom fried chicken? Ji Yuqi raised her eyebrows. This man was really impolite. He treated her as his personal chef. However, why didn't she feel unhappy at all? Instead, she was very happy. Ji Yuqi parked the car in the school's parking lot and then went to the dormitory to get her textbooks. Wang Jing and Xia Yan, who used to have a good relationship with her, looked as if they had seen a ghost when they saw her. They kept their distance and looked at her with disdain. On the other hand, Lin Yushi, who had never interacted with her, said, "Good morning," indifferently. "Good morning." Ji Yuqi smiled brightly. "Yushi, let's go together, okay?" Lin Yushi was slightly startled. Then, she faintly said, "Okay." After the two of them went out, they heard Wang Jing whisper, "Shameless. I didn't expect her to be so vicious." Lin Yushi turned to look at Ji Yuchi and calmly explained, "The news said that you ordered the servants to poison Yizisu." They believed it. Ji Yuchi knew that Wang Jing was scolding her, but she didn't care. In her previous life, she saw Wang Jing and Xia Yan's true colors. Their family backgrounds weren't as good as hers and they liked to hug her thighs. They always said in her ear, "Yuchi, your Louis Vuitton bag is so beautiful. Can you lend it to me? And Yuchi, your Givenchy dress is so beautiful. Can I try it on?" The implied meaning was self-evident. She was generous when it came to money and gave them a lot of gifts. However, later on, when Ji Yuchi caused a scandal at the ball, the two of them were the happiest to hit her when she was down. Ji Yuchi smiled faintly. "Let them scold me. No matter how hard they scold me, I won't lose a piece of flesh." Lin Yushi was startled. "Ji Yuchi, you've changed. If it was in the past, you would definitely quarrel with them." Ji Yuchi playfully blinked. "You were bitten by a dog. You can't bite back, right?" Lin Yushi's beautiful face, which had always been cold, revealed a smile. "Of course not. You'll only disgust yourself if you bite back." Ji Yuchi held her hand and said seriously, "Yushi, thank you." She thanked her for not saying anything bad about her in her previous life. She also thanked her for believing in her in this life. Lin Yushi didn't say anything and just held her hand. On the way to the school building, countless disdainful and malicious gazes intertwined on Ji Yuchi. They pointed at her and whispered about her vicious behavior. Ji Yuchi walked in the midst of the scolding with a calm expression. Lin Yushi held her hand comfortingly and she responded with a warm smile. "Ji Yuchi, you're too vicious. I didn't expect you to be this kind of person." An angry and low male voice suddenly sounded. Ji Yuchi looked at the man not far away with a complicated expression. He was Tang Feng. He was Tang Hejie's grandson and Ji Yuchi's childhood sweetheart. The two of them had agreed to be engaged when they were very young. They were originally very close and Ji Yuchi had always liked him. However, everything changed after Yi Zissou entered the Ji family. Tang Feng became more and more distant from Yuchi and closer to Yi Zissou. He became Yi Zissou's guardian angel. He told Yuchi more than once that he wouldn't marry her. Yuchi thought that she wasn't good enough, so she studied hard and tried to change her bad temper. However, he said, "It's useless no matter how good you are. The person I like is not you." Later, Yuchi and Gu Fifan caused a scandal at the ball. Tang Feng didn't even want to maintain the harmony on the surface. Ignoring the Tang family's objections, he proposed to the Ji family to cancel the engagement. Ji Bowen felt that his daughter had wronged Tang Feng, so he could only agree. After the engagement was cancelled, Tang Feng openly pursued Yi Zissou. The two of them caused a stir in the school. Ji Yuchi would always become Yi Zissou's foil. One was a slut, the other was a noble white lotus. She was trampled into the mud by Yi Zissou. Every time Ji Yuchi was hurt, Jiang Tianhao would appear like a god to save her. Slowly, she was moved by his gentleness and was intoxicated by his thoughtfulness. It could be said that Tang Feng was one of the important people who pushed Ji Yuchi into Jiang Tianhao's arms. Come and see. Xinwu 799. Chapter 799. Scenes of the past surfaced in her mind. During the darkest period of her life, she had hated Tang Feng. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state. But now, seeing him angrily settling scores with her and fighting for Yi Zissou, Ji Yuchi suddenly didn't want to hate him. She only felt that he was pitiful. He loved a beautiful snake, but he was played by her and ended up in such a miserable state. He was just a pitiful person. After Ji Yuchi thought it through, the ruthless aura that she was releasing instantly retracted. She looked coldly at Tang Feng holding Yi Zissou's hand and walking in front of her. Tang Feng was very handsome, with straight eyebrows and bright eyes. Because he was born into a military family and had been in the army for a few years, he exuded an awe-inspiring righteousness. He was tall and straight, standing in front of Ji Yuqi like a towering mountain. His handsome eyebrows were tightly knitted, and his deep eyes were surging with anger. Ji Yuqi, when did you become so vicious? Just because I don't love you, you want to destroy Zissou? Ji Yuqi looked at him in amusement. Tang Feng was the most outstanding grandson of the Tang family. Since young, he had a sense of superiority. To put it nicely, it was arrogance. To put it bluntly, it was self-righteous. She chuckled. Tang Feng, you're thinking too much. Her gaze was filled with pity, and her smile was filled with faint mockery. This made Tang Feng, who was favored by the heavens, very uncomfortable. How could his little tail, who had been following him around since young, look at him with such a gaze? Clearly, she was very sad when he said that he wouldn't marry her some time ago. That's right, it must be a disguise. Zissou had said that Ji Yuqi was very good at disguising herself. There was a hint of disgust in Tang Feng's eyes as he said with a cold face, Ji Yuqi, do you know how important reputation is to a girl? You actually framed Zissou and caused her to lose face at the ball. I order you to apologize to her immediately. Big brother, you, forget it. Big sister didn't do it on purpose. Don't make things difficult for her. Yi Zissou hugged Tang Feng's arm and timidly hid beside him. She was like a delicate little white flower. Tears were about to fall from her beautiful big eyes. She was really lovable. Sure enough, when Tang Feng saw her tear-stained and delicate appearance, the love and pity in his heart grew even stronger. The gaze he used to look at Ji Yuqi became even colder. Ji Yuqi, apologize immediately. Ji Yuqi said indifferently, how do you want to apologize? Do you want me to go to the radio station and admit in front of all the teachers and students that I'm a vicious and shameless woman who framed my gentle and beautiful sister? Or, do you want me to kneel in front of all these people and beg for your forgiveness? How does that sound? Tang Feng was stunned. He had never thought of that. When he was young, he also liked his little sister Yuqi. She was obedient and cute, but later on, she changed. She became vicious, unruly, and always bullied Zissou. He came to find her full of anger and asked her to apologize to Zissou. It was not only to seek justice for Zissou, but also because he was heartbroken for her. Even so, he had never thought of embarrassing her in front of the whole school. His eyes were dark and unreadable. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but Yi Zissou beat him to it and said, no, big sister, big brother, you didn't mean that. Don't be angry with big brother, you, okay? It's all my fault. Ji Yuqi didn't even look at her. She stared straight at Tang Feng and smiled. Her smile was very gentle and poignant. Big brother Tang Feng, how do you want me to apologize? Just tell me and I'll do it. Big brother Tang Feng. In his memory, that delicate little girl always called him so softly. Tang Feng's heart softened and his expression softened. Yuqi, you did something wrong, so you should apologize. Say sorry to Zissou. Ji Yuqi sneered in her heart. Sure enough, all men liked Yi Zissou's gentle and lovely style. The corner of her lips curled up slightly as she said softly, all right, I'll do whatever big brother Tang Feng says. Then she looked at Yi Zissou and smiled gently. Zissou, I'm sorry. Yi Zissou, I'll let you be arrogant for a few more days. The more arrogant you are now, the more miserable you'll be when that matter is exposed. It's okay, big sister. I've never blamed you. Yi Zissou had a bright smile on her face, but she was vomiting blood in her heart. She deliberately urged Tang Feng to find trouble with Ji Yuqi, not to hear her apologize, but to see them turn against each other. Ji Yuqi smiled at Tang Feng again. Her smile was sad. Big brother Tang Feng, although I've listened to you and apologized, I still want to make it clear. Whether you believe it or not, I've never instructed Xiaofang to harm Zissou. She wasn't lying. She had instructed Xiaofang. After saying that, without waiting for Tang Feng's response, she took Lin Yuxi's hand and walked away. Tang Feng's eyes narrowed as he looked at her straight back. Even if she was submerged in the crowd, she was still very conspicuous. She was like a red plum, proud and noble, but also had a coldness that kept people 1,000 miles away. Why did he have a feeling that he had suddenly lost something? Yi Zhisu shook his arm and said softly, "Big brother I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I caused a misunderstanding between you and big sister." Tang Feng came back to his senses. "It's not your fault, Zhisu. Class is about to start. Let's go." For Ji Yuqi, this was a day full of troubles. When she and Lin Yuxi walked into the classroom, a rag flew at them. Ji Yuqi quickly took a step forward and stood in front of Lin Yuxi. Then, she reached out to block it. The rag fell at her feet, but her clothes were stained with black ink. A few drops of ink even splashed on her fair cheeks. It was very eye-catching. "Ji Yuqi, you black-hearted woman. Black really suits you. Look at her now. Doesn't she look like a dusty groundhog? Ha 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 ha. Don't be like this. She's the dancing queen of this year's Christmas ball." Dancing queen? I think she's more like an old witch. Lin Yuxi was shocked. She quickly took out a tissue and wiped the ink off Ji Yuqi's face. She quickly said, "Yuqi, ignore them. I'm fine." Ji Yuqi's heart warmed. She did not stop her. She looked up and looked indifferently at the people who were mocking her. They were a group of rich second generations. Just because their families were rich, they acted like tyrants in school. The leader was called Xiao Ren. He looked like a hooligan and treated Yi Zhisu as his goddess. He could not wait to follow behind her every day. Now that their goddess was in trouble, of course they had to stand up for her. Ji Yuqi's eyes were cold and clear. Although her red coat was dirty and her hair was a bit messy, her aloof and otherworldly temperament and calm expression made everyone feel a little guilty. She did not question or explain. She looked straight ahead and walked step by step to the seat she was used to sitting in. Lin Yuxi naturally sat beside her. The atmosphere in the classroom became strange. Xiao Ren and the others who were still provoking and cursing suddenly shut their mouths. Things were not over yet. After class, Ji Yuqi went to the washroom. She was tidying her clothes in the cubicle when a basin of cold water fell from the sky, drenching her from head to toe. Outside the cubicle, the girls' arrogant laughter could be heard. January was the cold season. Even though there was a heater in the washroom, her face was still blue from the cold water. When she came out of the cubicle, the group of girls who were teasing her had disappeared. She looked at herself in the mirror and smiled coldly. "Yuqi, are you okay?" A well-defined hand appeared in front of her eyes and pushed away the wet hair covering her forehead, revealing a pair of large misty eyes. Ji Yuqi stared blankly at the man in front of her. His tall and slender figure and handsome face were full of worry. He took off his coat and draped it over her shivering body. He held her shoulders and anxiously called out, "Yuqi. Yuqi." Tears as big as beans fell from her eyes and slowly flowed down her pale face. Her lips that had turned purple from the cold trembled. Senior, Jiang Tianhao breathed a sigh of relief. His handsome brows quickly furrowed again. He said angrily, "Did they bully you? Tell me who they are. I won't let them off." Ji Yuqi shook her head and stubbornly wiped away her tears. Her beautiful face glowed with pride. "Forget it. Don't argue with them. Senior, thank you." It was rare for the arrogant girl to show a delicate expression. She pretended to be strong, and this caused Jiang Tianhao to feel more pity for her than a delicate little white flower. His expression became gentler and his brows were full of tenderness. He said gently, "Yuqi, don't think too much. Those things will pass." Ji Yuqi nodded, touched. "Senior, you have to believe me. I didn't do those things that were reported on the news." Jiang Tianhao gently stroked the hair by her ear. "Of course I believe you. Yuqi is a good girl. She would never do anything to hurt others." Ji Yuqi smiled through her tears. That smile was like the sun piercing through the clouds. It was dazzling and beautiful. Jiang Tianhao was momentarily dazed. His expression became gentler. Yuqi, I'll send you back to the dormitory. Change into a new set of clothes. Be careful not to catch a cold. Ji Yuqi didn't reject him. She put on an expression of being touched, but deliberately restrained herself. She appeared reserved, but at the same time, she revealed her special feelings for him. Jiang Tianhao naturally noticed this, and a surge of joy welled up in his heart. It seemed that he would soon conquer this rich young lady. It was the same in his previous life. When Ji Yuqi was teased and walked out of the bathroom drenched, Jiang Tianhao appeared like a savior. He said that he believed in her. He said that he would protect her and not let her be bullied again. At an angle that Jiang Tianhao could not see, Ji Yuqi's lips curled into a strange smile. Since you like to be a hero so much, I'll let you be as much as you want. In less than half an hour, the news of the student council president, Jiang Tianhao, sending Ji Yuqi back to the female dormitory spread all over the school's internet. There was also a post titled, "Mr. President, you're busy playing around with feelings. Does your mother know?" The post was pushed to the top of the forum. The post had pictures and the truth. There were pictures of Jiang Tianhao and Yizisu having a passionate conversation. There was also a shot of Jiang Tianhao putting on a jacket for Ji Yuqi. The comments below the post were divided into two factions. One faction was Jiang Tianhao's diehard fans. They scolded Ji Yuqi and Yizisu for being shameless enough to seduce their president. The other faction came out of nowhere and scolded Jiang Tianhao for being shameless and walking between the two beauties. In the end, the mysterious faction overwhelmed the diehard fans. All of the posts scolding Jiang Tianhao sprung up like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. It even alarmed the school leaders, who gave Jiang Tianhao a warning and criticism. Yizisu looked at the intimate photos of Jiang Tianhao and Ji Yuqi. She was so angry that she almost crushed her silver teeth. That slut Ji Yuqi actually seduced her senior Tianhao. She was too hateful. Why didn't she just die? Yizisu's hatred for Ji Yuqi grew with each passing day. It was endless. Ad. Hongcha 866. Chapter 800. Ji Yuqi sat in the car and browsed through the latest news on the forum. She was so happy that she thumped the steering wheel a few times. Then, she beamed with joy and sent a text message to Lin Yushi. The photo of the toilet door was taken well. Thank you. And the person you found who posted the post, help me thank him too. I'll treat you to a meal another day. She could have avoided the basin of cold water in the toilet, but she chose not to. She allowed those women to do whatever they wanted to her. Otherwise, how could she have waited for Jiang Tianhao to walk right into her trap? Dong dong. Someone knocked on the car window. Ji Yuqi lowered the car window and saw Gu Fifen's beautiful face. He crossed his arms and leaned lazily against the car door, looking at her with a half-smile. Ji Yuqi raised her eyebrows. What's the matter? Gu Fifen's long and narrow peach blossom eyes narrowed and he laughed softly. Yuqi, you're burning the bridge after crossing the river. You're too heartless. You make me so sad. Looking at his teasing smile, Ji Yuqi could not help but think of the past. In her previous life, Gu Fifen and she were both victims of embarrassing themselves at a ball. The difference was that Gu Fifen was originally a playboy, so it was not a big deal to have a few more affairs. As for her, her innocent reputation was ruined. Gu Fifen, who had been pestering her at the beginning, also abandoned her. She heard him say to his friends with her own ears, I thought she was a chaste woman, but I didn't expect her to be so proactive. She's no different from the women I used to have. How boring. She did not hate Gu Fifen, but she did not have a good impression of him either. She hated those men who were flirtatious and only had brains. They flaunted conquering women as if conquering the world. She was expressionless and said lightly, Mr. Gu, if you have something to say, please say it. If not, please stand aside. Gu Fifan clicked his tongue twice. You're really heartless. Aren't you curious about who helped Lin Yushi post the post? Aren't you curious about who found the group of people who suddenly appeared to scold Jiang Tianhao? Ji Yuqi widened her eyes and looked him up and down suspiciously. He puffed out his chest proudly and combed his hair handsomely. With a proud tone, he said, "That's right, it's me. I'm the handsome and elegant little white dragon Gu Fifan." The corners of Ji Yuqi's mouth twitched and she looked unfriendly. "Why are you helping me?" "Yuqi, Chi-Chi, it's cold outside. Let me sit in the car." Gu Fifan changed his expression and blinked pitifully. He grabbed the car door with his two paws and almost wagged his tail. Ji Yuqi couldn't help but think of the golden retriever she raised when she was a child. 3 black lines appeared on her forehead. She unlocked the car door and let the cute man sit in the passenger seat. He brought the cold air into the narrow car. He leaned against the seat and sighed with satisfaction. "It's so warm in the car. Chi-Chi, what perfume are you using? It smells so good." Ji Yuqi suppressed the urge to throw this person out. "Let's continue the topic just now. Why are you helping me?" Gu Fifan chuckled and his voice was as charming as wine. "First, Lin Yushi is my cousin. She has something to ask of me. As her cousin, how can I not help her? Second." He twirled a strand of her long hair with his slender fingers and said in an ambiguous tone, "Jiang Tianhao wants to snatch a woman from me, so he should be prepared for bad luck." Ji Yuqi frowned. She really didn't know that Lin Yushi was Gu Fifan's cousin. Impatiently, she pulled her hair out of his hand. "Did you also take credit for the school's leaders?" Gu Fifan snapped his fingers and said, "Smart. I only gave him a little pressure," and the head of the teaching department immediately went to talk to Jiang Tianhao. Ji Yuqi raised her eyebrows in amusement. She suddenly realized that Gu Fifan was a little interesting. "Didn't you say that you wanted to treat me to a meal? I want to eat something that you cook. Let's do it today." He put his hands behind his head and leaned back leisurely as he looked at her with a smile. Ji Yuqi thought of the text message she sent to Lin Yushi, saying that she wanted to treat them to a meal. She didn't expect that it would reach his ears so quickly. She smiled brightly. "Sorry, I can't do it today. Let's do it tomorrow." "Okay, but it's just you and me. Also, you have to cook it yourself." His slender fingers tapped the tip of her nose and then pointed at himself. "Okay." Her smile became brighter. She was looking forward to tomorrow's date. She guessed that Chen Tingfang and her daughter would be looking forward to it too. As usual, Ji Yuqi called her father and said that she wouldn't be coming home for the next 2 days. She would be staying at the Ji family's mansion. Ji Bowen agreed very much. The news reports were all over the place, saying that Ji Yuqi was the mastermind. There were also a few reporters who often appeared outside the Ji family's villa. He naturally wanted to protect his daughter, so he didn't mention these things. Although he didn't mention it, Yuqi was well aware of it. She was very grateful and touched by her father's protection. In the past 2 days, Yi Zhisu had recovered her reputation in school, but she didn't have a good time at home. Chen Tingfang scolded her several times, saying that she acted on her own and shouldn't have let Xiaofang bite Ji Yuqi. She also shouldn't have revealed that Ji Yuqi had drugged her. Because it was too simple and crude, it would attract Ji Bowen's suspicion. Yi Zhisu admitted her mistake on the surface, but she didn't think so in her heart. So what if Ji Bowen suspected her? In any case, Ji Yuqi's reputation was ruined and she had become the public enemy of the entire school. She was happy to see her being bullied miserably. "Mom, I just heard Auntie Gong say that Xiaofang has been going out these past few days to help Ji Yuqi. I think, is Ji Yuqi up to no good again?" Yi Zhisu massaged Chen Tingfang's shoulders to please her. "Ask Auntie Gong to find someone to keep an eye on Ji Yuqi. These past few days, she has been hiding in the old mansion. I don't know what she is up to." Chen Tingfang knew that Xiaofang was Auntie Wu's niece. She also knew that the aunt and niece were Ji Yuqi's people. Last time, when Ji Yuqi switched the perfume, Chen Tingfang suspected that they were the ones who did it. Unfortunately, she couldn't find any evidence and could only let Xiaofang take the blame. If she could get hold of their weakness this time, she would get rid of all of Ji Yuqi's people and replace them with her own people. Ji Yuqi bought some groceries at the market and returned to the old mansion. Just as she stepped through the door, she suddenly saw a figure flash past Shenja's room. It was so fast that she almost thought that her eyes were playing tricks on her. She walked into the room and greeted Shenja as usual, pretending that she didn't know that there was a stranger here. She knew that Shenja had many secrets and that Shenja wasn't simple, but she believed that he wouldn't harm her. That was enough. Shenja was still leaning against the recliner with a book on his knees. His deep eyes looked at her quietly and his voice was indifferent. "You've changed your clothes. Someone poured a bucket of cold water on me today. Fortunately, I kept some spare clothes in the dormitory." Her heart warmed. He looked cold, but in fact, he kept many details in his heart that were easy to overlook. He couldn't help but imagine her soaking wet and shivering like a puppy. His heart felt a little gloomy and there was a nameless fire in his heart. His expression became ugly. What kind of principal is your school doing? How could he allow bullying to happen? Ji Yuqi couldn't help but smile. Don't be angry. I did it on purpose. Those people won't be able to hurt me. She knew that if she didn't explain, the position of principal might be changed tomorrow. Shenja was really capable of doing such things. That principal didn't know that he had avoided a disaster, but the girl who poured cold water on Ji Yuqi was unlucky. 2 days later, she was inexplicably expelled by the school. Shenja glanced at Ji Yuqi. His dark eyes and slightly pursed lips were obviously unhappy. The smile on her lips became more obvious. He was concerned about her. That was great. They were finally no longer strangers. He suddenly stretched out his arm. She was shocked and subconsciously took a step back. He opened his fingers and there was a thin necklace around his middle finger. The pendant was a light blue sapphire. The bright and flawless gem reflected a bright light under the sun. It was dazzlingly beautiful. For you. His voice was like the sound of a cello, deep and pleasant. The sapphire symbolized calmness and bravery. It was his birthday stone and also his favorite gem. She stared at his finger in shock and suddenly didn't know what to do. He had given this necklace to her before, but that was the day before her wedding with Jiang Tianhao. Now, he was giving her this necklace. What did it mean? Her expression obviously pleased him. His brows relaxed and his deep eyes sparkled. His thin lips curved into a faint smile. Come here. Her throat was dry and she shook her head. No, this is too precious. I can't accept it. His smile faded and his eyes drooped. No matter how precious something is, it's just a dead object without a compatible person. He suddenly looked up at her with a complicated gaze that she couldn't understand. I'm leaving tomorrow. You can keep this necklace as a souvenir. In her previous life, he left without saying goodbye. In this life, he told her clearly and even gave her a gift. She didn't know why he had changed so much. She knew that he was a stubborn person. Once he made a decision, no one could change it. If he wanted to give someone a gift, he would have 100 ways to make it impossible for them to reject him. She also couldn't reject him. She walked in front of him and squatted down to look at him at eye level. She saw a small version of herself and only herself in his obsidian eyes. His fingers reached to the back of her neck and skillfully fastened the necklace. He looked at it seriously and suddenly smiled. It's very beautiful. It suits you very well. She smiled back. Thank you. As usual, they ate quietly. After the meal, they strolled around the courtyard and chatted. Most of the time, it was Ji Yuqi talking. He listened seriously and occasionally expressed his opinion. Neither of them mentioned that he was leaving tomorrow, but it seemed like they were deliberately avoiding the topic. After the stroll, they continued to lie down side by side for their afternoon nap. Ji Yuchi flipped through a few pages of a book and felt a little frustrated. She couldn't focus on anything, so she threw the book aside and closed her eyes to rest. Hearing the steady breathing of the person beside him, Shinja opened his eyes and turned his head. Her petite body was curled up under the blanket. She was like a small ball, like a caterpillar. Her fluffy curly hair was draped over the pillow, making her jade-white face look even more exquisite. His brows were filled with warmth. His slender fingers gently rubbed her cheek. His voice was dreamy. Yuchi, wait for me, beauty novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 801. The next morning, Shinja left without saying goodbye, leaving Ji Yuchi standing under the osmanthus tree in a daze. For a moment, her heart felt empty. After standing in the yard for a while, she picked up her phone and dialed a number. Ruru, act according to the plan and bring them here. After setting up a trap for several days, she could finally draw in the net today. Chin Tingfang, Yi Zisu, don't let me down. Ji Yuchi's lips curled into a strange smile. Her eyes were as cold as the stars and were frighteningly cold. After class, Ji Yuchi and Lin Yushi were packing up their textbooks and chatting. Yuchi, let's have lunch together. Ji Yuchi smiled shyly and said in a rare soft voice, another day. I made an appointment with a friend yesterday to go to my grandpa's place. Lin Yushi saw her daughter's shyness and became very curious. She kept asking, who is it? Is it your boyfriend? Ji Yuchi was slightly embarrassed. She didn't expect that Lin Yushi, who looked like an icy beauty, was actually passionate and gossipy. However, this was good for her. It was very helpful for her performance. She pretended not to see Xiao Ren's bright eyes behind her, which were shining with the light of gossip. She blushed slightly and pushed Lin Yushi's arm. She said coquettishly, you're so annoying. What boyfriend? We're just ordinary friends. Lin Yushi nodded sincerely. If you say we're ordinary friends, then we're ordinary friends. Don't worry, I really didn't see you blushing. Lin Yushi, if you keep talking, I'm really going to get angry. Ji Yuchi's almond-shaped eyes widened and her face blushed even more. She looked like a drunk person with an indescribable charm. Xiao Ren's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. However, he quickly came back to his senses and patted his cheeks. Bah, a black-hearted bad woman. How can she be as beautiful and cute as my Zisu? Thinking of his goddess, Xiao Ren's heart surged. Right, that old witch Ji Yuchi had an adulterer. It was such an important matter that he had to tell his goddess. Thinking of his goddess' gentle smile at him, his whole body softened. Okay, I got it. Thank you, Xiao Ren. I'm very worried that my sister will be deceived by a bad man. If you hear any news in the future, please tell me. Xiao Ren, you're really a good person. In the car, Yizisu softly talked to Xiao Ren on the phone. The smile on her delicate face disappeared, and it was terrifyingly gloomy. Yizisu sat in the car and waited for more than 10 minutes. From afar, she saw Ji Yuchi and a man walking towards the parking lot. As they got closer, she saw that the man was Gu Fifan. Gu Fifan changed girlfriends every 2 to 3 days. They were talking and laughing, and their movements were very intimate. Gu Fifan even held Ji Yuchi's shoulder and stared at her affectionately. The two of them got in the car and drove away. Yi Zisu sneered. No wonder Ji Yuchi had been running to the old house these days. It turned out that she was hiding a mistress in the old house and living with Gu Fifan in the old house. Ji Yuchi, you pair of wild lovebirds will soon fly off on your own in the face of disaster. Mom, Ji Yuchi is dating a man in the old house. Hurry up and take Uncle Ji to catch the adulterers. Hey, Yi Shui, call a few classmates, the more the better. I'll invite you to the courtyard house in the old town to play. In the afternoon, we'll go to the karaoke together. Yi Zisu thought for a moment and called a few of Gu Fifan's powerful ex-girlfriends. Coincidentally, those girls had a conflict with Ji Yuchi. Catching adulterers together would be more lively. Last time, she was the one who made a fool of herself in public. This time, it's Ji Yuqi's turn. The more she thought about it, the more excited she became. Her blood began to boil. When Shen Tingfang received the phone call, she was putting on a facial mask. When she heard the news, she was so excited that she threw the mask away and quickly changed her clothes. When she went out, she ran into Nurse Gong. Nurse Gong said mysteriously, "Madam, I asked Dao to follow Ruru this morning." Dao came back and said that Ruru went to the old house. There were men's clothes and underwear drying in the backyard of the old house. "I suspect that Miss is living with a man." "Good, Nurse Gong, you did a good job." Chen Tingfang was all smiles. She swayed her hips and walked towards the study. It just so happened that Ji Bowen was at home today. Let him, as a father, catch his daughter in the act. Let's see how he would put his face. Of course, the paparazzi were also needed. She wanted the whole city to see Ji Yuqi's lascivious nature. This was a very old courtyard, which should have been left behind from the Republic of China. The spacious courtyard was planted with flowers and trees. In the middle of the courtyard, there was a small artificial lake with grotesquely shaped rockery standing in the lake. The entire courtyard house retained its ancient style and had its own unique charm. This was something that couldn't be bought even if one had the money to do so. Gu Fifan followed Ji Yuqi into the courtyard, laughing and teasing her about the rich heritage of the Ji family. Ji Yuqi smiled and did not argue. In fact, the rich heritage of the Su family was her grandfather, who was a famous general, while her father, Ji Bowen, was just a commoner. Stepping into the backyard, there were many workers busy trimming flowers and leaves, repairing the walls and windows, and painting the walls. It was bustling with activity. Gu Fifan was depressed. "Didn't you say that we were going on a date? Why are there so many people? It's too boring." Ji Yuqi sincerely emphasized, "It's not a date. I'm treating you to a meal." There was a big difference between the two. Gu Fifan raised his eyebrows and said with a smile that was not a smile, "It doesn't matter. It's rare to have the opportunity to eat the dishes personally made by Miss Ji. I'll just treat them as the background." Although the building was old, the decoration in the room was a combination of classical and modern, which was both elegant and comfortable. Gu Fifan leaned against the kitchen door and leisurely crossed his arms, watching Ji Yuqi busy in the kitchen. She was wearing a white turtleneck sweater, a red knee-length skirt, a pair of cute fluffy slippers, and a cartoon apron. Her fluffy curly hair was tied into a bun on top of her head, which made her delicate face as bright as jade. Her pair of watery eyes flowed with light, full of smiles, beautiful and pure. She skillfully fiddled with pots and pans, like an angel who had mistakenly entered the mortal world. It was the first time he saw such a clean girl, her whole body exuding a fresh aura. At that moment, he suddenly felt his heart beat faster. He was very clear that she was different from the girls he had hunted in the past. He really, really liked her. When did it start? Perhaps it was when he stood outside her car window and saw her successfully pranking Jiang Tianhao. She was overjoyed and started to laugh wickedly. Ji Yuqi inadvertently raised her head and saw Gu Fifan's strange expression. She raised her eyebrows in surprise, but did not think too much about it. She looked very calm and focused on cooking, but in fact, she was worried. Chen Tingfang and Yi Zhisu, they should be here, right? Why aren't they here yet? Outside the courtyard, a group of gorgeously dressed beauties came out of several luxury cars, led by Yi Zhisu. She pushed open the courtyard door and invited everyone in. These girls were all from wealthy families, but most of them were from the foundation of their parents' generation. They did not have a deep foundation like the Su family. Once they walked into the courtyard, they could not help but secretly sigh. There was a low-key luxurious atmosphere everywhere, and it was not something that could be bought with money. It's just a so-so. What's there to show off? Compared to the Shen family's garden, it's a far cry. A girl named Zhu Zhu arrogantly raised her chin. She was the daughter of the municipal party secretary, and also Gu Fifan's current girlfriend. She was usually arrogant in school, and had always been the focus of everyone's attention. Now that she found that everyone's eyes were on Yizisu, she felt uncomfortable all over. Zhu Zhu's loyal supporters immediately echoed, "Yes, I heard that the Shen family's villa was built in an ancient garden, and is worth hundreds of millions." Ing City's Shen family was ranked first on the rich list, and they also had a complicated political relationship behind them. The two young masters of the Shen family were dragons among men, talented and good-looking people. It was a pity that they rarely appeared in the high society circle, and these girls could only dream about it. Yizisu was refuted by Zhu Zhu, and she was very angry. But when she thought of her important role in catching the adulterers, she suppressed her anger and smiled gently. "Our Ji family can't be compared to the Shen family. Let me show you around." "Hey, look, isn't that Ji Yuqi and Gu Fifan?" A girl with sharp eyes saw a man and a woman standing under the osmanthus tree. Zhu Zhu took a closer look, and sure enough, it was Ji Yuqi and Gu Fifan. The two of them were very close to each other, and Gu Fifan even put his hand on Ji Yuqi's hair. She was so angry that her whole body trembled, and like a grumpy heifer, she rushed towards the two of them, and forgot about her ladylike etiquette. "Ji Yuqi, you bitch, how dare you seduce my boyfriend?" Zhu Zhu rushed in front of the two, raised her arm, and slapped Ji Yuqi's cheek. "Zhu Zhu, don't mess around." Gu Fifan's face was ugly, and he grabbed Zhu Zhu's wrist tightly, so that her slap didn't go down. "Let go of me." "Gu Fifan, how can you do this? I am your girlfriend, and you are helping that bitch." Zhu Zhu was so angry that her eyes turned red. Since childhood, she was a proud princess in the eyes of the boys. She thought that she was the one who ended Gu Fifan's single life. She didn't expect that he actually cheated on her, and with her most hated Ji Yuqi. Hateful, too hateful. Gu Fifan squeezed her wrist harder, and his face was livid. He was really blind. How could he associate with such a vulgar, rude, big-breasted, brainless woman? It was simply the shame of his life. He shook her off and coldly said, "The 3-day shelf life has passed, let's break up." "Zhu Zhu, I warn you, don't go against Yuqi. Don't think that I don't know, on the school forum, the one who scolded her the most fiercely is you." Zhu Zhu was thrown back several steps by him, and almost fell down. Fortunately, she was supported by Yizisu. She shook off Yizisu's hand and angrily said, "Gu Fifan, you dare to treat me like this, I will make you and that bitch regret it." Gu Fifan indifferently raised his chin, and with a look of disdain, he said, "Okay, I'll wait and see." Zhu Zhu angrily stomped her feet. She couldn't get any advantage in front of Gu Fifan, so she turned her spearhead to Ji Yuqi. "Ji Yuqi, you bitch, it's not enough that you poisoned your own sister, but you also want to steal your classmate's boyfriend. Do you have any sense of shame? Are you still human?" Beauty novel, Shinwu 799. Chapter 802. Miss were satisfied with the show and spoke up for Zhu Zhu one after another. They scolded Ji Yuqi for being a despicable person and called her a mistress. Gu Fifan's eyebrows twitched, and he wanted to drive the group of women away several times. Ji Yuqi quietly tugged at his sleeve, indicating that he shouldn't act recklessly. He saw that her expression was calm, as if she didn't care at all, and suddenly calmed down as well. He watched those usually lofty and delicate young ladies suddenly turn into vulgar cursing ants on the street. He stroked his chin and watched with great interest, constantly pointing out, "Hey, that teapot with your hands on your hips has a great style. Hey, you, don't open your mouth so wide. Your bloody mouth is so scary." The women almost vomited blood. They felt insulted and tried even harder to humiliate Ji Yuqi. The scene was fiery and bloody. Ji Bowen and Chen Tingfang appeared at this time. There were also a few paparazzi hiding at the entrance, quickly pressing the shutters of their cameras. Yizisu was very good at seizing the opportunity. She quickly stood in front of Ji Yuqi and spoke up for her. "Everyone, please calm down. There must be some misunderstanding. My sister is not that kind of person." Zhu Zhu pulled her away and scolded, "Don't speak up for Ji Yuqi. We all saw it. She is a slut who seduces other people's boyfriends. I really don't know how the G family raised her. Shut up. Ji Bowen was very angry. Chen Tingfang, who was very close to him, saw that he was so angry that his fingers were trembling. He, Ji Bowen, had never been so ruthlessly slapped in the face by the younger generation. His daughter was the treasure of the Su family and also the treasure of the Ji family. Since when did this group of ignorant girls have the right to insult her? This reprimand shocked Zhu Zhu and the others. Ji Bowen had dominated the business world for many years. How could these young girls withstand the majestic aura that had been formed over the years? His cold gaze swept over the people who were cursing Yuqi one by one. Whoever his gaze landed on turned pale. He didn't know Zhu Zhu, but he knew a few of the girls. Their families had business dealings with the Ji family. Their fathers had to flatter him when they saw him, but they bullied his daughters. Good, very good. He had decided to have a good talk with those companies. Zhu Zhu quickly calmed down. Others were afraid of Ji Bowen, but she was not. Wasn't he just a businessman? He dared to offend her father? Zhu Zhu raised her chin and looked at Ji Bowen arrogantly. Teacher Ji, it's not that we bullied your daughter, but your daughter went too far. She stole my love, and my friends couldn't stand it anymore, so they taught her a lesson. Yeah, Uncle Ji, we didn't do it on purpose. When the others saw this, they hurriedly apologized. At the same time, they subtly diverted the fire of war onto Ji Yuqi. Ji Bowen looked at Ji Yuqi and Gu Fifan, who had remained silent. He asked calmly, Chi-Chi, is what they said true? Ji Yuqi bit her lips and her eyes reddened. Dad, no. I didn't. Ji Bowen looked at his daughter who was about to cry. His expression softened. Chi-Chi, don't cry. Dad believes you. Ji Yuqi nodded heavily. She stubbornly wiped the corners of her eyes and faced the crowd resolutely. Zhu Zhu, you said that I stole your boyfriend. Please show me the evidence. If you don't have it, I can sue you for slander. Gu Fifan rested his chin on his hand and watched for a while. He also saw the trick. He silently criticized Ji Yuqi's acting skills were amazing. She was cold, weak, and stubborn. With so many sides, she was full of surprises. Zhu Zhu snorted and said disdainfully, so many pairs of eyes have seen you and Gu Fifan hugging each other, and he even stroked your hair. Such an intimate action has already gone beyond the scope of ordinary friends. Ji Yuqi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Hugging? Aren't you exaggerating? We were just standing together. As for him stroking my hair. Gu Fifan, you explain. Gu Fifan had waited for a long time and finally got the chance to appear. He combed his hair handsomely and raised his eyebrows with a smile. A leaf fell on Yuqi's head and I helped her to remove it. It's that simple. You're quibbling. Zhu Zhu stomped her feet and said angrily, if you're not having an affair, why are you secretly hiding in this courtyard? Secretly? Hiding? Ji Yuqi smiled more and more helplessly. She spread her hands. I openly invited Gu Fifan to the old house for dinner. What's more, there are not only two of us here. There are many people who can testify for us and prove that we're innocent. No, I don't believe it. When we came, we clearly only saw the two of you. Zhu Zhu couldn't help but want to flip out. Yi Zhisu and Chen Tingfang also wanted to flip out. They faintly felt that things were not good. Why did they have a feeling that they were being cheated? Ji Bowen secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Although he believed in his daughter, if his daughter couldn't clear her name in front of so many people, her reputation would be worse. Now he was finally relieved. Ji Yuqi led a group of people to the backyard. There were dozens of workers in the yard, men and women were busy. Everyone was dumbfounded. Cheating under the eyes of so many people? What a joke. It seemed that Ji Yuqi and Gu Fifan were really innocent. Ji Bowen suddenly thought of something and smiled. Chi-Chi, are these the workers you found to renovate the yard? Look at me, I almost forgot about it. His daughter had once mentioned to him that she wanted to renovate the old house. He thought she was just saying it casually, but he didn't expect her to be serious. He nodded approvingly. His and Meiyu's daughter had really grown up. Zhu Zhu's face turned red and white, and Yizisu clenched her fists. Chen Tingfang cursed Ji Yuqi in her heart. She was sure that she had jumped into the trap set by the other party. At this moment, a young man carrying a paint bucket suddenly stopped and looked at the group of people carefully. Then, he rushed to Chen Tingfang and her daughter like crazy and knelt on the ground, crying, "Mrs. G, second miss, please do me a favor and let my sister go. We didn't spend a single cent of the money you gave my sister. We'll return it all to you. Please, let my sister go." This young man was wearing dusty work clothes. His entire body was covered in dust, like a little mouse. His face was also very dirty. When tears flowed down, they washed out 2 small streaks on his cheeks, making him look like a big gray cat. Chen Tingfang frowned in disdain, and Yizisu screamed, You, who are you? What nonsense are you talking about here?" Ji Bowen's eyelids twitched, and he said, "Young man, what do you want? Stand up and tell me." The young man stood up and wiped the tears on his face with the back of his hand. His face was dark, and only the color of his teeth could be seen. He choked and said, "Sir, my name is Wu Xiaohu, and my sister is Wu Xiaofang. My sister works at the Ji family, and a few days ago, she was suddenly arrested and taken to the police station. I went to the police station to visit my sister, and she gave me a bank card with 200,000 yuan in it. She said that this was her savings, but my sister only earns 2,000 yuan a month. How could she save so much money? I asked her, and my parents forced her, so she said that this money was given to her by Mrs. G. Mrs. G, I don't want your money. I beg you, drop the lawsuit against my sister." This dirty kid was actually Xiaofang's brother. Chen Tingfang's breathing was unstable, and she forced herself to calm down. She had negotiated with Xiaofang that she would give Xiaofang 200,000 yuan as compensation. She had thought that Xiaofang's family was all farmers and didn't know much, but who knew that Wu Xiaohu would come looking for her? No, it couldn't be so coincidental. Chen Tingfang's sharp gaze quickly turned to Ji Yuqi, only to see that she was shocked, as if she had never known about Wu Xiaohu. Chen Tingfang was even more certain that this was Ji Yuqi's doing. She swallowed a few mouthfuls of blood and looked at Wu Xiaohu coldly. "Wu Xiaohu, right? This is strange. I've never given your sister any money. Could it be that your sister is lying? Or could it be that she stole something from the Ji family and sold it for money, and now she wants to frame the Ji family?" Wu Xiaohu said firmly, "Impossible. Although our family is poor, we would never steal anything. My sister said that you were the one who gave her the money." Chen Tingfang sneered. "Since your sister said that I gave her the money, did she say why I gave her the money? Am I crazy to give money to others for no reason? Even if you want to blackmail me, you should find a better reason." Wu Xiaohu's mouth opened, but he didn't know what to say. He had asked his sister why Mrs. G gave her money, but she refused to say anything. Chen Tingfang saw that he was in a daze and felt that she was right. She raised her chin and said contemptuously, "You have nothing to say, right? Your sister ended up in jail because she framed Master. That's what she deserved, no?" Wu Xiaohu interrupted her emotionally. "My sister must have been wronged. She wouldn't do such a thing." His eyes became fanatical as he stared at Chen Tingfang and Yizisu, who was standing next to her. He said word by word, "My sister also said something to me. She said, 'Madam and second miss, please be magnanimous.'" Why did Chen Tingfang and Yizisu have to be magnanimous? Was Wu Xiaofang forced to admit her crime to protect her master's face? Everyone present was smart, and they all thought of this possibility. In an instant, everyone turned to look at the mother and daughter. Ji Bowen's eyebrows twitched, and there was a hint of anger. Chen Tingfang was furious. That bitch, Xiaofang, had dared to betray her. How despicable. Actually, Xiaofang also hated Chen Tingfang. Chen Tingfang had promised her that she would protect her and not let her go to jail. She didn't expect that in front of Ji Bowen. She didn't even say a word and let Xiaofang be arrested by the police. That was why Xiaofang told her brother the source of the 200,000 yuan. As for the sentence, be magnanimous, it was Ji Yuqi who taught Wu Xiaohu to say. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 803. At this critical moment, Yi Zhisu suddenly calmed down. She looked at Chen Tingfang and then looked at Ji Bowen. She said softly, Mom, Uncle Ji, I was too strict. That's why Xiaofang hated me and did that kind of thing. In fact, I feel guilty these days. Xiaofang is still very young. Her life shouldn't be stained. As the person involved, I don't want to pursue her legal responsibility anymore. Uncle Ji, I want to withdraw the lawsuit against Xiaofang. Is that okay? Ji Bowen's eyes were dark, and it was hard to tell if he was happy or angry. As his wife, Chen Tingfang knew that he was weighing the pros and cons in his heart. She quickly said, Bowen, Zhisu is right. Xiaofang's family lives in the countryside, and her whole family depends on her to survive. It's not easy. Ji Yuqi sneered in her heart. These two mother and daughter were really good. They covered up Wu Xiaohu's words with just a few words and pushed the decision to her father. It made her father look like a cold-blooded and heartless person. Of course, she wouldn't let them do as they wished. Ji Yuqi said lightly, Auntie, Zhisu, if you said those words on the day of the incident, Xiaofang wouldn't have been sent to the police station. She wouldn't have caused a commotion in the city and let everyone see our Ji family as a joke. Father is doing this for Zhisu's own good. Otherwise, what if the servants hate her and do something to hurt her? Gu Fifan interrupted, Second Miss, you should be more lenient to your servants in the future. After all, they are also human. You can't just beat and scold them. Someone laughed in a low voice. No matter how you listened, it sounded like mockery. Yi Zhisu's face turned pale. She knew that from today onwards, she would bear the reputation of being harsh to her servants. Okay, this matter is decided. Tingfang, contact the police station and withdraw the lawsuit against Xiaofang. Ji Bowen didn't want to make this matter bigger. Now that the Ji family's reputation had been affected, it was better to keep the peace. Moreover, this way, the media would no longer keep a close eye on Yuqi. Ji Yuqi had already guessed that Xiaofang and Chen Tingfang had made a deal, so she asked a private investigator to keep an eye on Xiaofang's family. When Wu Xiaofang gave Wu Xiaohu 200,000 yuan, she asked Ru to find Wu Xiaohu and tell him that if he wanted his sister to be released from prison, he should do as she said. Although the incident this time could not bring down Chen Tingfang, it would make the thorn in Ji Bowen's heart even deeper. Moreover, Ji Yuqi would also take the opportunity to get rid of Chen Tingfang's moles, such as Auntie Gong. Sometimes, the truth was not important. What was important was the facts that one saw. The truth was that Chen Tingfang had once given Xiaofang 200,000 yuan. It was not difficult for anyone to guess the purpose of this sum of money. Chen Tingfang paid the paparazzi to shut up, but she couldn't bribe the students who were present. Therefore, there was a rumor that Chen Tingfang used the money to bribe Xiaofang and let Xiaofang frame Ji Yuqi. Chen Tingfang was afraid that Ji Bowen would continue to investigate, so she didn't dare to play tricks anymore. She played the role of a good wife and mother every day and took good care of Ji Yuqi and Ji Yunhan. Although Ji Bowen was suspicious, he didn't pursue the matter. He just fired Auntie Gong and ignored Chen Tingfang for a few days. Yi Zhisu also had a hard time these days. Those who used to follow her mocked and ridiculed her, and those who didn't like her bullied her even more. However, she always remembered Chen Tingfang's teachings. She had to endure. Ji Yuqi, that be *tch, wouldn't be arrogant for long. During class, Yi Zhisu went to the washroom and heard them talking about her. She gritted her teeth and suppressed the anger in her heart. She tried to appear calm and elegant. Tsk, she pretends to be a noble and elegant white lotus, but in fact, she's just a disgusting dog's tail. That's right. Last time, so many of us were invited to the courtyard house to watch Ji-Yuchi make a fool of herself. In the end, she made a fool of herself. After Yizusu entered the cubicle, she heard the disdainful laughter through the door. She was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Her beautiful cheeks were distorted with anger. Suddenly, a bucket of cold water was poured on her head. Her body was soaked, and her hair and clothes stuck to her body. She was so cold that she shivered. Open the door, open the door. She couldn't hold it in anymore. Her anger exploded in an instant, and she pounded on the cubicle door like a madwoman. Damn it, that group of B*cheese actually locked her inside. The only response she got was the sound of gradually fading footsteps and ridiculing laughter. Ji-Yuchi stood outside the cubicle door with her arms crossed. She smiled leisurely and thought to herself, I'll pay you back little by little. Yizusu, look forward to it. The bell rang, and everyone in the cubicle disappeared. Only Yizusu was left. She hugged her arms and curled up in the corner of the cubicle with an ashen face. She was in such a sorry state that she looked like an abandoned puppy. In this moment of embarrassment and helplessness, the first person that Yizusu thought of asking for help was Jiang Tianhao. Fortunately, she had her phone with her. She took out the wet, waterproof phone from her coat pocket and used her stiff fingers to send him a text message, "Senior, save me." When Jiang Tianhao rushed into the female cubicle, Yizusu was like a pitiful little animal curled up in the corner of the cubicle. She closed her eyes and shivered. He hurriedly took off his coat and draped it over her body. He hugged her cold body tightly and said in an extremely gentle voice, "Zisu, it's okay now. I'm here." Yizusu's long eyelashes fluttered. She slowly raised her head, and 2 lines of tears flowed down her petite face. She was like a lotus after the rain, and also like a begonia welcoming the morning dew. She was so delicate that it made people feel pity for her. "Senior. I'm so scared." Her lips trembled. She was already sobbing when she said those 2 words. His embrace was warm and solid. He gently stroked her back and comforted her softly, "It's okay now. I'm here. Don't be afraid." Yizusu was crying in his arms. Her face was covered in tears, but her moist eyes were shining with a strange light. She, Yizusu, was not easy to defeat. Even if she was at a disadvantage, she would turn it into an advantage. Senior would definitely feel pity for her when he saw her delicate appearance, wouldn't he? However, Jiang Tianhao was thinking that if he appeared when Yizusu was at her most helpless and saved her, he would definitely capture her heart. Although this pair of man and woman had different goals, they were getting closer because of the same calculation. These days were the most comfortable days for Ji-Yuchi after her rebirth. In school, no one mocked and ridiculed her anymore. On the contrary, everyone looked at her with sympathy. It was as if she was the Cinderella in the fairy tale, always being bullied by her stepmother and stepsister. Ji-Yuchi's former friends who had fallen out with her came back to get close to her. She treated them politely and was no longer as warm as before. This was because she understood that only those who stood by her side when she was in trouble were true friends. "Yuchi." A familiar voice came from behind her. Ji-Yuchi turned around and saw Tang Feng's tall and slender figure standing in front of her. There was an unnatural expression on his handsome face. He took a step forward and said in a low voice, "Yuchi, I heard from Zisu that Xiaofang deliberately framed you. I wronged you. Please forgive me." Ji-Yuchi found it funny. She didn't expect the arrogant Tang Feng to apologize to her. If he had put down his pride and was willing to believe her just this once in her previous life, she wouldn't have been so desperate that she wanted to commit suicide. She looked into his eyes with a complicated expression and said softly, "Tang Feng Gij, you've changed. When we were young, no matter what others said, you would always believe me." When she was young, she often went to Tang Feng's house to play. Tang Feng's cousin didn't like her and often said bad things about her. Every time, Tang Feng would say seriously, "I believe in Chi-Chi." She wouldn't do such a thing. Tang Feng, why? Why don't you believe in me when I'm at my lowest point? She thought about all the things in her previous life and how he resolutely broke off the engagement. She stood on the rooftop in despair and looked at his back as he walked away. She hoped so much that he would turn around and look at her, but he didn't. He held Yizisu's hand and left without hesitation. His back was so heartless, her heart ached and her eyes turned slightly red. She looked at him with her beautiful almond-shaped eyes, which made him feel suffocated. The feeling of loss became even stronger. But soon, he felt that her complaints were unreasonable. He calmed down and said in a low voice, "Yuchi, you've changed too. You're no longer who you were when you were young. How can you force me to be who I was when I was young?" Yes, everyone had changed. They couldn't go back to how they were in the past. Why should she force it? Yuchi restrained the slight sadness in her heart. Her eyes became cold and her tone was indifferent. "Big brother Tang Feng, let's break off the engagement," she said. Tang Feng's eyes narrowed. Although he had told Yuchi more than once that he would not marry her, she actually spoke before he could break off the engagement. This made him feel like he had been abandoned. His self-esteem was hurt. He was so outstanding, but she actually wanted to break off the engagement. Could it be that she had a change of heart? He held her shoulders and stared at her dangerously. "Why? Could it be that you've fallen for someone else?" Yuchi smiled bitterly. "Big brother Tang Feng, the one who has fallen for someone else is not me, but you. I just don't want to make things difficult for you. Didn't you say that you won't marry me? Then there's no need for us to maintain this engagement." Tang Feng's heart was in a mess. He didn't like her before because he felt that she had become unruly and ruthless. But now, he suddenly wondered if she had really turned bad. Or had he misjudged her from the beginning? He was not willing to let go just like that. His self-esteem would not allow him to be dumped by a girl. He did not explain anything. He only said firmly, "Yuchi, I will not agree to break off the engagement." Yuchi's lips curled into a faint sneer. "Because I was the one who brought it up first, I embarrassed you, didn't I? All right, then I'll wait for you to bring it up." She did not want to say anything more and turned to leave. He suddenly grabbed her arm and forced her to turn back. There was a hint of confusion in his deep eyes. "Yuchi, what kind of person are you?" Yuchi could not help but feel sad. This was the person who had been her childhood sweetheart for 20 years. Did he not know her well enough? Yet, he asked such a question. She brushed his hand away expressionlessly and said calmly, "Tang Feng, you really disappoint me." Tang Feng stared blankly at her as she walked away. A corner of his heart twitched as if he had lost something and could never get it back. Yuchi turned around the corner and saw Gu Fifan leaning against the wall leisurely with his arms crossed. He raised his eyebrows and smiled. That kid surnamed Tang really has poor taste. He mistook fish eyes for pearls. Ad Shinwu 799. Chapter 804. Yuchi glanced at him with displeasure in her eyes. "Eavesdropping on our conversation?" Gu Fifan shrugged handsomely and said lazily, "Not exactly eavesdropping. I wanted to look for you, but he beat me to it, so I waited here." He made a disdainful expression. "Who asked you to be so loud that I could hear you?" Yuchi couldn't be bothered to argue with him. She raised her brows and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" He leaned closer to her and whispered into her ear, "How are you going to repay me for being used by you last time?" Yuchi pursed her lips. This Gu Fifan was pretty smart. If it wasn't to lure Yizisu into the trap, she wouldn't have invited him to the Gu residence. She smiled faintly. "How do you want me to repay you?" His slender fingers hooked a strand of her hair and sniffed it. His actions were elegant and flirtatious. His magnetic voice carried a hint of a smile. "Be my girlfriend." Yuchi slapped his hand away and pulled back her hair. She said faintly, "Mr. Gu, I'm not interested in being the clothes that you changed out of in 3 days." Gu Fifan chuckled. Ji Yuqi had to admit that his deep laughter was very attractive. Chi-Chi, are you jealous? Ji Yuqi rolled her eyes. Big brother, I'm obviously rejecting you. I'm rejecting you, okay? Which eye of yours saw me being jealous? How could she be jealous over a stud horse? Gu Fifan liked to see her angry face. It was much cuter than her cold face. He stroked her fluffy curls as if he was comforting a small animal. He smiled and said, "Don't be angry. I'm just joking with you. Seriously, be my girlfriend. I'm so handsome and talented. I won't embarrass you." Ji Yuqi suddenly grabbed his wrist, which was resting on her shoulder. She grinned and said, "If you can dodge this move, I'll agree." What? Gu Fifan was surprised. Before he could speak, he suddenly felt that his body was lifted into the air. Then, with a plop sound, he was thrown over her shoulder onto the concrete floor. Ji Yuqi. Gu Fifan was awkwardly lying on the ground, fiercely staring at the innocent face of the woman. His heart was about to vomit to death. He was such a smart person, but he was actually tricked by a woman. Ji Yuqi shrugged innocently. "I'm sorry, Mr. Gu. You didn't meet my requirements." Gu Fifan was both angry and amused. If it was said that he was joking when he asked her to be his girlfriend, now he really wanted to make her his girlfriend. This woman was like a poppy, mysterious and beautiful. The closer he got to her, the more he found that she was hiding many secrets. He was determined to get her. After class, Ji Yuqi drove the car to the villa halfway up the mountain. This villa area was hidden in the mountains. It was very quiet, suitable for leisure and retirement. One of the two-story villas was located by the lake. The owner was an old man in his 60s, Zhao Yao. Zhao Yao was born in the Special Forces. He used to be the bodyguard of Ji Yuqi's grandfather, Su Jingheng. After Su Jingheng passed away, he moved to this villa and lived a semi-secluded life. By the lake, a hale and hearty old man with white hair was fishing quietly. He leaned on the deck chair, his eyes slightly closed. The footsteps behind him were getting closer and closer, but he did not react at all. It was as if he was asleep. "Grandpa Zhao." Ji Yuqi quickly pounced on him. Her actions seemed simple, but in fact, she was aiming for a few fatal acupuncture points on his body. The old man still did not react. He sat motionless like a statue. When Ji Yuqi's fingers were less than a centimeter away from his body, a pair of withered, old tree bark-like hands suddenly grabbed her wrist. With a violent tug, her delicate body was flung into the air like a kite and fell heavily into the lake. The cold water rushed towards her ears and nose from all directions. After panicking for a second, she quickly calmed down. Using a vigorous posture, she swam towards the shore unhurriedly and loudly teased, "Grandpa Zhao, you're too ruthless. If I didn't react quickly just now, I might have drowned." Zhao Yao stood up slowly and said with a straight face, "Where have you been these few days? Why didn't you come for training?" Ji Yuqi stuck out her tongue and quickly climbed out of the water. She smiled and said, "I was at home dealing with those two annoying women. But luckily, I won. They should stop for a few days." Zhao Yao's face was expressionless as he replied, "You've missed 5 days. Make up for all the training that you've missed. If you can't complete it, there's no need for dinner." "Yes." Ji Yuqi's expression was solemn as she saluted him. Ever since she had been reborn, Ji Yuqi had realized the importance of strength. She could no longer be a weak and ignorant young lady. She had to use her strength to strengthen herself and protect herself and her family. In her previous life, she lived in the beautiful dream that Jiang Tianhao created for her. She was muddle-headed and became his slave without any thoughts of her own. In this life, she wanted to change the tragic fate of her previous life. She wanted to build her own business. She wanted to become a strong woman and protect the Ji family's assets. She wanted to make those who looked down on her look at her differently and create a wonderful life. For this goal, she was not afraid of any hardship. She gritted her teeth and ran 2 rounds around the mountain. Then, she jumped into the cold lake and swam back and forth for half an hour. After that, she went to the training room to practice martial arts with Grandpa Zhao. She had been living like this for more than half a month. Initially, she was so tired that she had to lie on the ground and listen to Grandpa Zhao's lecture. Now, she could barely take 10 moves from him. Soon, the school would be on winter break. Ji Yuqi no longer had to play the hypocritical game with Jiang Tianhao. She had a very comfortable time. She dragged Ji Yunhan to Zhao Yao's place to practice martial arts every day. During the Chinese New Year, Ji Yunhan's body became stronger and he grew a few centimeters taller. He looked healthy and handsome. He was not as rebellious and naughty as before. He was obedient and sensible, and his personality was more stable. Ji Bowen was very pleased and praised him in front of the whole family. Ji Yuqi had also become healthier. Her fair skin was tinged with a faint pink, like a lustrous pearl, glowing with vitality. The siblings had changed a lot. Chen Tingfang felt uneasy and suspected that they were plotting something outside. She hired a private investigator to follow them and found that they went to the mountain villa every day. Unfortunately, the mountain villa was heavily guarded. Even the private investigator did not know what they were doing inside. Chen Tingfang implicitly mentioned to Ji Bowen a few times that her children had grown up and were always running outside. She was worried about their safety. Ji Bowen did not take it to heart. In the end, he was annoyed and said, "Chi-Chi told me that she and Ahan went to Uncle Zhao's house. Uncle Zhao is Chi-Chi's grandfather's security officer. The old man has no children and lives alone. It is only right for the children to accompany him. You don't have to worry about it." Chen Tingfang felt very uncomfortable. She was the child's stepmother. It was right for her to care about the child, but he said that she was worrying for nothing. Ji Yuqi and her brother were becoming more and more favored. This meant that her and Zisu's position in the family was in danger. She could not sit still and wait for death. She had to plan well. On New Year's Eve, Ji Yuqi had just woken up when she received a call from Jiang Tianhao. His voice was warm and gentle. "Little lazy cat, are you awake? Happy New Year." During the holidays, Jiang Tianhao would call her every day and say things that would make her fantasize. If it had been Ji Yuqi, who was still young and inexperienced, he would have stolen her heart long ago. However, the current Ji Yuqi was almost shocked to death by him calling her "little lazy cat." She shivered and said softly, "Senior, Happy New Year." Jiang Tianhao said a few more words, but Ji Yuqi responded half-heartedly. Then, she found an excuse to hang up the phone and threw it on the bed in disgust. After breakfast, she dragged Ji Yunhan with her and bought many gifts to Zhao Yao's house. The housekeeper was on holiday and the villa was deserted. Yuqi invited him to her house for the new year, but he refused. Yuqi could not persuade him. She had to personally make 2 kinds of dumplings and put them in the fridge. She told him to cook them for dinner. Ji Yunhan happily pasted Spring Festival couplets on the door and read "Fu" characters on the window. Then, he swept the snow into a pile and built a snowman. Zhao Yao stood in front of the window and watched the siblings busy themselves. He felt an indescribable warmth in his heart. This house had never been so lively. The Ji family had a lively New Year's Eve. At midnight, the New Year's bell rang. The sky was filled with bright fireworks, blooming in the night sky in clusters of flourishing prosperity. Ji Yuqi leaned against the railing and looked at the thousands of lights in the distance. She fiddled with her phone and wondered if she should contact Shinja. They had not contacted each other for a while. However, she had been following news about him. She knew that he had returned to the Shin Corporation and was the vice president. The current president was the second young master of the Shin family, Shin Yu. From their positions, it could be seen that the chairman, Shin Jianhao, favored the second son, Shin Yu. The vice president position seemed glamorous, but in reality, it had no real power and was controlled by Shin Yu. Moreover, when Shinzhou was overseas, Shin Yu had already taken control of the Shin Corporation. It could be said that the entire Shin Corporation was under Shin Yu's control. Shinjo was such a proud person, it must be difficult for him to face Shin Yu's attitude every day. Ji Yuchi sighed. They were both his sons, but why was Shin Jinhao so biased? Beep. Her phone rang. Ji Yuchi quickly opened the message and was disappointed for a moment. However, she was happy again. It was a message from Lin Yushi. She replied and wished her a happy new year. The phone rang again. It was a familiar music. Ji Yuchi glanced at the caller ID, and her heartbeat inexplicably sped up. She couldn't help but curve her lips and swipe open the phone. What are you doing? Shenja's voice was low and magnetic. It was like red wine that had been in the cellar for many years. It was fragrant and intoxicating. Her mood brightened without any warning. The smile on her lips deepened, and there was a coquettish tone in her voice that she didn't even notice. I'm answering your call. Shenja laughed softly. He stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and looked at the bright fireworks in the sky. He could not help but think of the first time he saw her. In the small forest, her eyes were frighteningly bright and beautiful, just like the fireworks. Ad. Hongcha 866. Chapter 805. Yuchi, this was the first time he had called her by her name. His magnetic voice made her heart melt. For the first time, she felt that her name sounded so good when someone called her by her name. She pursed her lips and smiled. Yes? Yuchi, he called her again. She thought that he had something important to say. She held her breath and asked in a gentle voice, what's the matter? Do you know how to make crystal prawn dumplings? Ji Yuchi was speechless. Yuchi? Ji Yuchi was angry. Couldn't he say something romantic in such a good atmosphere? Why did he only know how to eat? This glutton. She was shocked. Wait a minute, why was she expecting him to say something romantic? Could it be that she... No, it wasn't like that. She just felt guilty and wanted to make it up to him. If she loved him, she would have loved him in her previous life. Why would she wait until this life? Moreover, she wanted revenge. Her life was already dark. He wouldn't like her being so cruel and merciless. Ji Yuchi's heart felt stifled for no reason, and all her joy vanished like smoke into thin air. Yuchi, are you listening? She replied softly. She pulled herself together and said, didn't you have a reunion dinner? You're hungry again? There's no reunion dinner. I'm at Golden Bay. His voice was calm, but Ji Yuchi could hear the loneliness in it. She couldn't help but feel sorry for him. She knew that place. It was Shinja's villa. Shin Jinhao had thrown him there when he was 16 years old. She thought that no matter how much Shin Jinhao disliked Shinja, he would ask him to return to the Shin family for the new year. She didn't expect him to be so heartless. She gripped her cell phone tightly and said impulsively, wait for me. I'll go to your place. She paused. She remembered that she wasn't that familiar with him yet. But since she had already said it, she could only laugh dryly. I'm just kidding, go to the balcony and look downstairs. See if there's a black car. Shinja didn't seem to hear her last sentence and continued to instruct her. Ji Yuchi, who was standing outside the balcony, obediently looked down. There was indeed a black car parked outside the courtyard. She blinked curiously. Yes, how did you know? He chuckled. I was the one who asked Zay to pick you up. Weren't you coming to my house? Ji Yuchi was speechless. After holding it in for a while, she said in a muffled voice, so you've already planned this. If I didn't take the initiative to mention it to you, what were you going to do? Ask Zay to come back, he said nonchalantly. Ji Yuchi was inexplicably angry. Are you stupid? Don't you know how to invite him? Aren't you embarrassed to let a girl take the initiative? He thought about it seriously. So it can be done like this. I'll remember it. Just you wait. Ji Yuchi clenched his teeth and hung up the phone. Without another word, she decided to make a big plate of dumplings and stuff him to death. Ji Yuchi knew Aze. He was Shinja's bodyguard and also his friend. He liked to wear trench coats, black and white. Both colors of trench coats had a special charm on him. With his tall figure and dashing trench coat, he looked like a killer who had walked out of the Matrix. Aze was a man of few words. When he saw Ji Yuchi walking towards the car, he didn't say anything. He opened the car door and made an inviting gesture. It was the new year, so the streets were deserted. Their journey was smooth and unimpeded. In less than an hour, the car arrived at their destination. It was a villa near the bay. The chilly sea breeze carried a fishy smell. Ji Yuchi walked step by step into this familiar place under Aze's lead. The room was warm. Ji Yuchi felt as if she had returned to her own home. She took off her coat casually and hung it on the hanger. The man who had summoned her in the middle of the night was wearing gray trousers and a white shirt. The top 2 buttons were unbuttoned, revealing a small patch of fair skin. He was holding a wine glass in his hand and sitting lazily by the bar. He looked at her from afar. "Come over and have a drink with me." Ji Yuchi glanced at his muscular chest and looked a little gloomy. "You haven't recovered from your injury. You can't drink." Shinja narrowed his dark eyes in satisfaction. "You care about me." Ji Yuchi snorted. "Nonsense. I picked you up out of kindness. It wasn't easy to save your life. Of course I care about you." She snatched the wine glass from his hand and finished it in one gulp. "Okay, there's no more. You're not allowed to drink anymore." "Okay." Shinja answered Gigai. He leaned against the bar and supported his face with one hand. His deep almond-shaped eyes were half closed like a lazy cat. Ji Yuchi had the urge to rub his hair. She shook her head to get rid of that thought. Knowing that he was a little drunk, she took a blanket from the sofa and covered him with it. Then she went to the kitchen to prepare some food for him. When she opened the fridge door, she was shocked. It was full of everything. Ji Yuchi rummaged through the fridge and found the ingredients for the crystal shrimp dumplings. She wore an apron and busied herself by the kitchen counter for more than half an hour. The first pot of shrimp dumplings was finally ready. "Shinja." Ji Yuchi placed the dumplings on the bar counter and nudged a certain someone who had his eyes closed. He slowly opened his eyes. There was a hint of confusion in his deep eyes. He looked like a little puppy that had lost its way in the dark night. It made one's heart ache inexplicably. Ji Yuchi's throat was a little dry. She wanted to say something, but she held it in. She curved her lips stiffly and pushed the plate in front of him. "Aren't you hungry? Hurry up and eat it while it's hot." His eyes had returned to their deep and cold state. He stared intently at her neck and said lightly, "Why aren't you wearing it?" Ji Yuchi was stunned. She suddenly realized that he was talking about the aquamarine necklace. She couldn't help but chuckle. "It's such an expensive item. Of course I have to treasure it well." He raised his eyebrows in satisfaction and slowly but elegantly enjoyed the food on the plate. He was very picky. He might not even like the food made by international chefs. However, the home-cooked dishes that she had made on the morning he woke up had whetted his appetite. Food had feelings. He could feel the love that she had poured into the food from her cooking. He liked to touch her heart in this way. She was like a pineapple. The outside was covered with thorns, but the inside was soft and sweet. The crystal shrimp dumplings slowly disappeared one by one until only an empty plate was left. He looked up at her. "Is there more?" Ji Yuchi couldn't help but laugh. "Don't tell me you haven't eaten all day." Fortunately, she had prepared enough dumplings for him. She picked up the plate and went to the kitchen to get the dumplings. His calm voice came from behind. "If you're willing to be my personal chef, I'll help you take revenge." Ji Yuchi's hand trembled and she almost threw the plate away. She laughed softly. "What revenge?" I don't know what you're talking about. The light footsteps came closer and closer. Shenja walked behind her. The distance between them was less than a meter. His voice was very calm, as if he was talking about the weather. He said, "You don't have to hide it from me. I know what you're doing. I also know what they did to you." Of course, he was referring to Chen Tingfang and her daughter. Ji Yuqi gripped the plate tightly. She was too silly. How could she forget that Shinja wasn't the kind of person who could be easily fooled? He wouldn't allow an unknown creature to exist around her, so he would definitely investigate her identity and even her ancestors. She closed her eyes, feeling a little tired. "The day before you left, I saw someone go to your room. It was Zhe. He told you everything about me, right?" Shenja took a step forward and his chest happened to touch her back. Her back was very tense, like a fully drawn bow, which made him very uncomfortable. He frowned and explained unnaturally, "Yes, I've checked on you, but it's not what you think. You don't have to say any more." "I understand." She quickly interrupted him. She turned around and her head almost hit his chin. She stuffed the plate into his hands. "The dumplings are in the pot. You can scoop them out yourself. I'm going home." Ji Yuqi almost ran away. After running out of the villa, she realized that she had forgotten to take her coat. The cold air invaded her lungs and it hurt when she breathed it in. She hugged her shoulders and stood there in a daze, not knowing what to do. Go into the house to take her coat? That seemed awkward. Also, it was so late. How was she going to go home? Let Aze send her? But Aze, that guy, disappeared after bringing her into the villa. In just 2 seconds, several thoughts flashed through her mind. When she finally decided to embarrass herself and go into the house to take her coat, a warm coat was draped over her shoulders. A pair of strong arms pulled her into a broad and warm embrace. Ji Yuqi raised her head to look at him. His chiseled chin and thin lips were tightly pressed together. Looking up, she saw a pair of unfathomable black eyes. She couldn't see any emotion from them. "I'll take you home." Shenja's voice was a little low. She calmed down quickly and withdrew from his embrace. She smiled politely. "Okay, sorry to trouble you." Shenja looked at her deeply. Ignoring her avoidance, he took her hand and led her to the car. From Golden Bay to the Ji family, Shenja didn't say anything. Ji Yuqi didn't want to say anything either. She turned to look out of the window. In the flickering night view, she suddenly thought of Shenja in the past. He stroked her hair and called her "little girl" affectionately. She had wondered more than once why Shenja loved her. Later, she had an answer. She felt that it was because of her innocence and kindness that made Shenja feel warm in the darkness. Therefore, he was only greedy for a kind of beauty. And in this life, she also lived in darkness and calculation. She couldn't bring him beauty. She was afraid that he would unveil her disguise and find out her ugliness. That made her feel ashamed, as if she had been stripped naked and placed under the sun. After that night, their relationship returned to a state where they didn't contact each other. Sometimes, Ji Yuqi thought about it and thought that she was having an unrealistic dream. Every time she wanted to contact Shenja, she would feel afraid and give up. Add Songshu 566. Chapter 806. During the Chinese New Year, Yi Zhisu went out every day. Ji Yuqi asked Ru to follow her twice and found out that she was on a date with Jiang Tianhao. Her interest was piqued. In her previous life, Jiang Tianhao married her, but he loved Yi Zhisu. In this life, she will fulfill their wish and make them a couple. Then she will destroy what they want. It will be very exciting. In the cinema, the movie ended and the ending song was playing. The sad and sorrowful tune fit the theme of the movie. The movie was called Du Shinyang, and the plot was very cliché. Du Shinyang, a prostitute, fell in love with Li Jia, a rich young master. Later, Li Jia betrayed her for money and sold her to Sun Fu. Du Shinyang was disheartened and scolded Sun Fu and Li Jia. She threw the treasure chest she had kept for many years into the river. Yi Zisu's eyes were misty as she looked at the man beside her shyly and timidly. She said coquettishly, "Senior, if you were Li Jia, would you abandon Du Shinyang for your future?" Jiang Tianhao's fair and slender fingers fell on her cheeks, gently wiping away the tears at the corner of her eyes. He smiled warmly and said, "Of course not. As a man, how can I abandon my wife who went through hardships with me?" "Senior." Yi Zisu's cheeks were flushed red, and her eyes were so gentle that water could drip from them. She was extremely shy, and Jiang Tianhao's heart was stirred by her. He felt his body heating up. "Yushi, I think Du Shinyang is really stupid. If I were her, I would definitely not die. I would live well and let Li Jia, that bastard, regret it." The slightly cold voice was like a basin of cold water that extinguished the heat in Jiang Tianhao's body. He quickly withdrew his fingers and looked at the beautiful figure in the front row. Ji Yuqi and Lin Yushi sat together and discussed the plot as if there was no one else around. Ji Yuqi had just finished speaking when Lin Yushi immediately replied, "Not only is she stupid, she is completely stupid. She threw away the treasure chest and died, but that scumbag called Li Jia is still alive and well. Du Shinyang is the biggest idiot in the world." Yi Zisu also heard their comments and couldn't help but refute, "You can't criticize Du Shinyang like that. Although she was betrayed by her lover, she is still a noble. In order to protect her love, she would rather sacrifice her life." Ji Yuqi and Lin Yushi turned their heads at the same time. Ji Yuqi stared at Yi Zisu with a smile and said slowly, "Love? Ridiculous love. The reason why Du Shinyang chose to die was only a small part of love. More importantly, it was the cruel reality of society. It wasn't easy for her to marry the man she loved as a brothel girl. In the end, that man betrayed her shamelessly for his future and sold her to someone else. If she had chosen to live, then she would have become Sun Fu's plaything. She would have faced the ridicule of the world, so she didn't have the courage to live." Ji Yuqi paused, satisfied to see Yi Zisu's astonished expression. Her lips curled up in a mocking smile, and she continued in a voice so cold it was frightening, "I feel sorry for Du Shinyang, because those who have never died will never know the horror of death. Compared to death, what is humiliation? What is ridicule? Nothing is more important than living." At this moment, Yi Zisu felt that Ji Yuqi was very unfamiliar. She was like a malicious spirit that walked out of hell. She had an innate coldness that made her uncontrollably fearful. On the other hand, Jiang Tianhao looked at Ji Yuqi and was impressed by her deep thinking. Compared to her, Yi Zisu was too superficial. However, the more superficial a girl was, the easier it was to control her. The current Yi Zisu was already obedient to him. Thinking of this, he secretly squeezed Yi Zisu's hand to comfort her. He smiled warmly and said, "Yuqi, what you said makes sense. Everyone only has one life, so we have to cherish it." Yi Zisu felt warm in her heart when he held her hand. She smiled generously and said, "Sister Qiqi, Yushi, I didn't expect to meet you here. What a coincidence." Ji Yuqi's deep gaze lingered on them. "Yes, what a coincidence. I didn't expect Senior and Zisu to watch a movie together." Her tone sounded sour. Jiang Tianhao was delighted. Was she jealous? He secretly squeezed Yi Zisu's hand again, then let go. He smiled and explained, "Yuqi, don't misunderstand. My friend bought a movie ticket, but something came up at the last minute and he couldn't come. I didn't expect him to make an appointment with Zisu." Yi Zisu received Jiang Tianhao's hint and quickly cooperated. "Yes, Sister Qiqi, please don't misunderstand. I originally made an appointment with Xia Yaning to watch a movie together. I didn't expect him to stand me up. Xia Yaning was a famous trap in school. He claimed to be a good friend of women. No matter what difficulties his sisters faced, he was happy to help them solve. With such a responsible friend of women, even if Ji Yuqi asked him for confirmation, Yi Zisu didn't have to worry about him exposing her." Ji Yuqi blushed and said reproachfully, "What's there to misunderstand? Anyway, it's none of my business who Senior likes to watch a movie with. Under the light, her flushed cheeks were as smooth as jade. Her watery eyes seemed to want to say something, but they didn't. Her coquettish gaze was like a cat's paw, scratching Jiang Tianhao's heart a few times. It was very ticklish. He knew that she was interested in him, but because Yi Zissou was present, he couldn't go too far. He said reservedly, "Yuchi, don't you understand my feelings? If you want to watch a movie, I can watch as many movies with you as you want." She really didn't know how he could say so many mushy lines. Ji Yuchi was so disgusted that she wanted to vomit. However, when she saw Yi Zissou's pale face, she immediately felt better. Ji Yuchi thought with satisfaction that after her catalysis this time, the relationship between the two of them should have improved by leaps and bounds. The four of them had dinner at a Japanese restaurant. Ji Yuchi once again saw how smooth and slick Jiang Tianhao was. As a man, he socialized with 3 women. He was meticulous and considerate to all of them. If she didn't already know his true colors, she would have been deceived by his gentle face. After dinner, it was getting late. The Lin family's car hadn't arrived yet. Ji Yuchi looked at Jiang Tianhao reluctantly. "Senior, I'll take Yushi home. You can take Zissou home." Today, in order to create a coincidental encounter with Jiang Tianhao, she called Lin Yushi out of the house. She was responsible for taking her home safely. Jiang Tianhao smiled and nodded gently. "Okay. Be careful on the road. I'll call you tonight." Ji Yuchi smiled shyly and pulled Lin Yushi into her car. Yi Zissou didn't drive out on the date with Jiang Tianhao to take care of his face. Jiang Tianhao stopped a taxi and said considerately, "Zissou, I'll take you home." "Senior, where are we?" Jiang Tianhao didn't take Yi Zissou home. Instead, he took her to a residential building. Standing downstairs, Yi Zissou was a little expectant, but she couldn't believe it. Jiang Tianhao held her hand and smiled gently. "This is my house, Zissou. My house is very simple. Do you dislike it?" "Of course not. I'm very happy, really." Yi Zissou shyly leaned into his arms. If he was willing to take her home, it meant that he acknowledged her as his girlfriend. The house was simple and clean. It was obvious that it was a single man's house. Yi Zissou believed that he had never brought another woman to his house. Jiang Tianhao poured her a glass of juice and sat beside her. He gazed into her eyes affectionately and said softly, "Zissou, I brought you to my house to let you understand my feelings. I like you. Are you willing to be my girlfriend?" Yi Zissou's cheeks blushed. She shyly avoided his burning gaze and said softly, Of course I'm willing." Jiang Tianhao suddenly hugged her. "Thank you, Zissou. Thank you for trusting me. Don't worry. I won't let you live a hard life. I'll make you the most beautiful and happiest bride in the world." Yi Zissou's cheeks turned even redder. She hit his chest and said coquettishly, "What bride? I'm just your girlfriend." Jiang Tianhao held her face. His gaze was passionate and sincere. It was as if he was making an oath. "You're my only girlfriend, my only bride, and my only wife." Yi Zissou was extremely touched. Her black crystal-like eyes became misty. She muttered, "Senior, I believe you." Jiang Tianhao lovingly pinched her perky nose. His deep voice was bewitching. "Zissou, don't call me Senior anymore. Call me by my name." Yi Zissou's heart trembled. Her entire body was numb. She gazed lovingly into his eyes. Her red lips parted slightly. She softly murmured, "Tianhao." It was a young man and woman. After a while, both of them couldn't help but be aroused. The two of them hugged each other tightly and kissed. When Yi regained her senses, the two of them were already in a mess. His thick chest was pressed against her soft pink body. His hot and hard body was rubbing against her abdomen. Her whole body was trembling, and a part of her heart was uncomfortably empty. She really wanted something to fill it up. She was a little expectant and a little afraid. She didn't know if she should reject him. Tianhao, she was on the verge of tears. Her helpless voice was seductive. It made his blood boil even more. He almost couldn't hold it in anymore. He suddenly hugged her tightly. Panting heavily, his voice was extremely hoarse. Roy, don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. I'll wait until the day we get married. Yi Zisu's eyes were filled with tears. Her wet eyes were as bright as crystals. She was touched and kissed his lips. Her Tianhao must love her very much. Otherwise, he wouldn't respect her so much. After his breathing calmed down and his lust receded, Jiang Tianhao hugged Yi Zisu. Stroking her soft, silky hair, he said in a low voice, Roy, my family isn't rich. You're the daughter of a rich family. There are so many people pursuing you. Why did you choose me? Yi Zisu obediently lay on his chest. She pouted playfully. In my eyes, you're the best. I like you. If you regret it now, it's not too late. Don't say such things. I'll be sad. I won't regret it for the rest of my life. Jiang Tianhao kissed her forehead. The two of them talked for a while. Jiang Tianhao hesitated for a moment. It seemed like he wanted to say something but didn't know how to open his mouth. Yi Zisu said coquettishly, Tianhao, we're a couple now. We should be honest with each other. If there's anything you want to say, just say it. Jiang Tianhao was almost unable to hold on. He said worriedly, you promise you won't be angry? You won't look down on me? Of course not. No matter what you do, I'll support you. Su, you're the best. Jiang Tianhao kissed her cheek. After thinking for a while, he said slowly, Su, let me tell you a story. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 807. 20 years ago, there was a pair of good brothers. They discussed starting a business together and started a company. Their business was thriving and their business was getting better and better. The relationship between the two brothers changed. One of them had evil thoughts. He wanted to drive the other person away and take over the whole company. This person schemed to frame his brother. He gave his brother $1 million to drive him out of the company and took over the company for himself. Later, the person who was driven away tried to start a new business, but he was deceived and all his assets were cheated. He was forced to make a living and asked his good brother for help. In the end, the ambitious man agreed on the surface, but arranged a car accident that killed his old friend. The company's business was getting better and bigger. It's now called G Group. The man who killed his friend was called Ji Bowen. The man who was driven out of the company and killed was my father, Jiang Zhenyao. Yi Zisu was shocked. She couldn't believe it. In her eyes, although Ji Bowen was serious and didn't have much feelings for her, he wasn't an evil person. Would he really do something like murder for money? Jiang Tianhao looked at her wandering eyes and sighed. Su, you think I'm lying to you, right? No, it's not like that. I'm just too shocked. I didn't expect Uncle Ji to be that kind of person. Yi Zisu hesitated for a moment between her stepfather and her lover. In the end, she chose to believe her lover. If I hadn't experienced it myself, I wouldn't have believed it either. I can only say that you can't judge a book by its cover. He hugged her tightly and said in a low voice, now you understand why I got close to Ji Yuqi. Yi Zisu's eyes lit up. She widened her eyes in disbelief. You want to take revenge on Ji Bowen through her? Jiang Tianhao opened his hand and covered her eyes. He said helplessly, Su, don't look at me like that. You make me feel dirty and scary. I approached Ji Yuqi for revenge. Most importantly, I wanted to take back the assets that belonged to the Jiang family. Su, my father sacrificed a lot for the G Group. His last wish was for me to take back what belonged to him. At this moment, the shock in Yi Zisu's heart was indescribable. She could hear resentment, unwillingness, and a deep sense of helplessness in his deep voice. He was a proud man. He must feel terrible for exposing the darkness in his heart in front of her. Yi Zisu's heart ached. She hugged his waist tightly and said gently, "Tianhao, you're very good. In my heart, no one can compare to you. If you want to seize the Ji family's wealth, I will help you. If you want revenge, I will also help you. No, you're too beautiful. I don't want to drag you into this. As long as you understand that no matter what I do, it's for our future, I'm satisfied." He was considerate of her in every way, which made her feel even more touched. She pulled down his hand and looked at his handsome face seriously. She said slowly, "Tianhao, I'm not afraid. For our future, I can do anything." His eyes reddened and sparkled. He was ashamed and touched. He murmured, I love you. I will never let you down in this life." Yi Zisu smiled sweetly. "I believe you." The two of them hugged tightly and kissed passionately. On the surface, they looked like a pair of infatuated lovers, but in their hearts, they each had their own plans. Yi Zisu was indeed deeply in love with Jiang Tianhao, but she was unwilling to live a poor life with him. She originally wanted to persuade him to seize the Ji family's assets with her, but she didn't expect him to take the initiative to ask her. How could she not be happy? As for Jiang Tianhao, he thought that he had won over Yi Zisu and was also overjoyed. However, he was a cautious person and wouldn't completely trust someone. After several probing, he found that Yi Zisu was sincerely on his side, so he let down his guard. After the two of them had a heart-to-heart talk, their relationship became even more intimate. There were a few times when they almost had sex. Later, they both had the mentality of tying each other down. One time, they got drunk, and the two of them finally succeeded in having sex. Yi Zisu was Jiang Tianhao's first woman. After tasting the sweetness, he used her more sincerely and treated her more carefully. Yi Zisu was nourished by love and glowed brightly every day. She couldn't wait to tell the world how happy she was. However, this happiness wouldn't last long because soon, she would have to help her lover pursue Ji Yuqi and win Ji Yuqi's heart. On the dark avenue, the only street lamp was blocked by the lush foliage and only a little light seeped in. Ji Yuqi walked forward unhurriedly with a strap on her arm. The sound of her high heels was particularly clear in the night. She didn't know when, but there were a few hurried footsteps behind her. She had a bad premonition and couldn't help but quicken her pace. When she quickened her pace, the people behind her also quickened their pace. She looked at the lights in the distance and simply ran wildly. The sound of her high heels sounded very frantic in the alley. "Yo, beauty, it's so late. Where are you going?" A hooligan-looking man appeared from the corner and blocked in front of Ji Yuqi. She took 2 steps back in a panic and said nervously, You move aside. Beauty, it's lonely in the middle of the night. Why don't you have some fun with us brothers?" An annoying voice came from behind her. Ji Yuqi didn't need to turn around to know that it was the 2 thieves who had been following her. 3 big men flanked her from the front and back. 3 wretched gazes fell on her as if they wanted to eat her alive. Ji Yuqi was like an ordinary girl who had met a criminal. She hugged her chest and screamed in a panic, "Don't come over. If you come any closer, I'm going to scream for help." The man in the lead laughed sinisterly and said a very classic line, "Go ahead and scream. Even if you scream until your throat breaks, no one will come to save you." "Help!" Ji Yuqi closed her eyes and screamed in a panic. Like a madwoman, she swung her handbag and violently beat the 3 people who were close to her. She had recently made great progress in her martial arts practice. The 3 thieves in front of her were not her opponents at all. She screamed for help, but in reality, the 3 of them were beaten to the point that they couldn't even fight back. "Stop!" An angry low voice was heard. The 3 thieves simultaneously heaved a sigh of relief. Oh my God, the person they were waiting for finally came. If they didn't come, they would have been beaten to death. From an outsider's perspective, Ji Yuqi had her eyes closed and was beating randomly. The three of them didn't dare to come close, but in reality, only the three of them knew how sad they were. How was this the delicate miss? This was clearly the boxing champion Tyson. His strength was astonishing. They were about to suffer internal injuries from his beating. No, they had to ask for more medical fees from that guy. Ji Yuqi heard the familiar voice and trembled as she opened her eyes. She looked at the man in front of her in disbelief. She mumbled, "Senior." Jiang Tianhao was wearing a black trench coat. His handsome face was covered in dark clouds as he fought with the three hooligans. He was like those chivalrous heroes in television dramas. He was so handsome that people didn't dare to look at him directly. He kicked one of the hooligans to the ground and punched another's chin. Then, he grabbed Ji Yuqi's wrist and ran forward. As he ran, he comforted her, "Yuqi, don't be afraid. I'm here." "Senior." Ji Yuqi gazed at his handsome profile. Her eyes were red, and tears were about to fall from her eyes. Jiang Tianhao held her hand tightly without batting an eyelid. He said gently, "Don't be afraid. It's all right now." She was touched and replied with an She continued to run forward with him. As they ran, she suddenly screamed, "Aya! What's wrong?" Jiang Tianhao hurriedly stopped. She bent over and held her knees with teary eyes. She looked very pitiful as she was about to cry. She pouted and said, "I sprained my ankle. Take a break first. We've already shaken them off." Jiang Tianhao carefully supported her and then squatted down to check her right foot. He gently pressed the ankle with his hand. "Does it hurt?" "It hurts, it hurts, it hurts." Ji Yuqi held back her tears and said pitifully, "It hurts and it's hot. It must be swollen." Jiang Tianhao looked distressed. "Yuqi, bear with it for a while. I'll take you to the school hospital." They were now on the way to the library. They still had to walk more than 200 meters to get to the school hospital. Ji Yuqi limped 2 steps. Jiang Tianhao suddenly turned his back to her and squatted in front of her. He said gently, "Yuqi, come on up. I'll carry you." Ji Yuqi's eyes had a cold smile, but her words were slightly flustered. "How can I do that, senior? I can walk on my own." Jiang Tianhao's voice was gentle but firm. "Yuqi, listen to me. Come on up. Otherwise, your foot will get worse." Ji Yuqi hesitated for a moment before she finally lay on his back. She hesitantly hugged his neck and whispered in his ear, "Senior, thank you. If you weren't here tonight, I don't know what would have happened." Her warm breath sprayed on the back of his neck like a warm little hand caressing his skin. He couldn't help but stiffen. "Do we still need to be so polite between us? Yuqi, it's a good thing you're okay. When I saw you surrounded by them, I almost went crazy." His voice was full of worry and concern. His disguise was flawless, as if he wasn't the one who hired those hooligans. Ji Yuqi forcefully suppressed the hatred and disgust in her heart. She placed her fingers on the important acupuncture points on the back of his neck several times before slowly withdrawing them. She wouldn't let him die so easily. She wanted him to suffer all kinds of torment and get revenge for all the humiliation she had suffered in her previous life. There was only one doctor on duty at the school hospital. Ji Yuqi used the excuse that she was embarrassed to take off her shoes in front of Jiang Tianhao and drove Jiang Tianhao out of the office. After she took off her shoes, the female doctor pressed on her ankle and muttered suspiciously, "It's not red or swollen. It shouldn't be that serious. Does it hurt a lot?" Ji Yuqi smiled fawningly. "Doctor, I'm fine. I just want my boyfriend to take care of me for 2 days. Can you help me bandage my ankle and pretend?" The female doctor shook her head helplessly as she took the gauze. "You young people are just messing around," Ji Yuqi smiled. "Thank you, doctor." After leaving the school hospital, Jiang Tianhao wanted to carry Ji Yuqi on his back again. Ji Yuqi pulled him up from the ground and said coquettishly, "The doctor just applied medicine for me. I'm fine now. I can walk on my own. Then I'll help you." Jiang Tianhao held her arm with one hand and her waist with the other. Their shadows intertwined under the light like a loving couple. Welfare, Hongcha 866. Chapter 808. Ji Yuqi lowered her head slightly, her long eyelashes casting a faint shadow under her eyelids. The corners of her lips curled up slightly, like a shy rose waiting to bloom. Jiang Tianhao thought she was shy, so he tightened his grip around her waist. The heat from his palm was transmitted to her body, and she trembled slightly under his palm. He curled his lips in satisfaction, but he didn't know that she was trembling from disgust. Ji Yuqi rarely stayed in the dormitory, but she had sprained her ankle today, so it was inconvenient for her to go home, so Jiang Tianhao sent her to the female dormitory. Imperial University's dormitory management was very strict. After 8:00 in the evening, boys were not allowed to enter the female dormitory, so even if Jiang Tianhao was worried, he couldn't send Ji Yuqi upstairs personally. He expressed his reluctance and worry perfectly, not appearing frivolous, but also warm. He pursed his lips and said gently, "Yuqi, be careful upstairs. Don't get your feet wet. If you need anything, call me at any time." Okay, senior. Thank you for today. Good night." Ji Yuqi smiled faintly and waved. "Good night." Jiang Tianhao watched Ji Yuqi limp into the dormitory building. He estimated that he would call her after she returned to the dormitory. "Yuqi, have you arrived?" I'm back in the dormitory." "Senior, it's getting late. You should go back." Jiang Tianhao looked up. A window on the 5th floor was open, and a familiar figure was standing in front of the window. Seeing him look up, the figure immediately waved. Jiang Tianhao raised his eyebrows and smiled, waving back. Ji Yuqi watched him leave, and his back was pulled very long by the light. She suddenly smiled, and under the light, her smile looked a little strange. Her phone suddenly rang. She thought it was Jiang Tianhao calling, but when she picked it up, she saw that it was the person she hadn't contacted for a long time. She was a little flustered and confused. When the phone rang again and again, she made up her mind and answered it. "Hello? Come down." It was a short and powerful word. "Huh?" She didn't react. "I'm downstairs." The low voice suppressed a touch of haze. "Oh, I'll be right down." Ji Yuqi could tell that someone was in a bad mood, so she responded sensibly. Fortunately, Ji Yuqi's roommates hadn't returned yet, and there was no one in the corridor, so she could rush downstairs as fast as she could. A black Maybach was parked on the side of the road. It wasn't very conspicuous under the shade of the trees. Ji Yuqi subconsciously stopped running and limped to the side of the car pitifully. Ah Zhe, who was wearing a black trench coat, stood beside the car and opened the door for her. She pretended to sit in the back seat with much effort. Shenji's thin lips were pursed tightly, and his dark eyes were like dark clouds. He stared at Ji Yuqi silently, making her feel extremely oppressed. She coughed and tried to break the awkward silence. "Why are you here?" He didn't answer her question, but glanced at her perfectly bandaged ankle. "What's wrong with your ankle?" His voice was very calm, but Ji Yuqi felt a chill run down her spine when she heard it. She carefully moved her right foot forward and laughed dryly. "It's nothing. I accidentally twisted it." "How did you twist it?" He stared at her deeply, his eyes as cold as ice, and wanted to get to the bottom of it. Ji Yuqi felt guilty for no reason. She felt that he seemed to know something. After hesitating for a while, she finally chose to tell the truth. "Actually, my ankle is fine. I'm just pretending." She didn't know how her words had offended him, but his perfect, handsome face suddenly darkened. He exuded a cold aura, and his eyes were fierce and malicious. He gritted his teeth and said, "You're trying to trick me by injuring yourself to gain my sympathy. Humph. You're so scheming just to get close to Jiang Tianhao." Ji Yuqi was stunned. How did he know that it was because of Jiang Tianhao? Shenja took her stunned expression as a silent admission. His anger swelled, and his expression became uglier. He said darkly, "Don't tell me you were also the one who hired the 3 people who attacked you?" Ji Yuqi was stunned again. She quickly became angry and said anxiously, "What nonsense are you talking about?" It was obvious that Jiang Tianhao was the one who had hired those 3 people. The campus is so big. Why did he suddenly appear and save my life? Do you think that I'll believe him again after falling for his trick once? The more she spoke, the more aggrieved she felt. Her eyes turned red. In her previous life, she was foolish and stupid. She thought that Jiang Tianhao had descended from the sky to save the damsel in distress and that he was her destined Prince Charming. In this life, how could she believe him again? She was just going with the flow and allowing Jiang Tianhao to get close to her. Looking at her misty eyes and hateful expression, he suddenly chuckled and felt an indescribable relief in his heart. He thought that she liked Jiang Tianhao. When he saw Jiang Tianhao carrying her all the way to the school hospital, his heart felt like it was being bitten by thousands of ants. As long as she didn't like Jiang Tianhao, it was fine. He didn't care how she played with him. Ji Yuqi was still feeling sad. Unexpectedly, when she heard Shenja's laughter, she flew into a rage out of humiliation. This despicable guy. Ever since New Year's Eve, he had refused to contact her. Now that they finally met, he actually laughed at her. He was too much. She snorted angrily and turned her head to look out the window, ignoring him. A hand suddenly landed on the top of her head and ruffled her silky hair. "You're angry, huh?" He said the last word in a nasal voice. His voice was slightly raised, and there was an indescribable sense of affection in it. She snorted and continued to ignore him. Shenja's lips curled up. He ruffled her hair again and said in a low voice, "No matter what you want to do, I can help you. Don't put yourself in danger again." When he saw the 3 hooligans surrounding her, he almost rushed forward. Fortunately, he was rational and realized that she actually knew martial arts. The hooligans were the ones who were injured. Then, he waited for Jiang Tianhao to arrive. When Ji Yuqi heard what he said, she was too embarrassed to be angry. She turned to look at him. "You've been following me all this time?" "Why?" Shenja looked calm. "I haven't seen you in a long time, so I came to take a look." When he found her, she was surrounded by 3 men. After Jiang Tianhao helped her out, he followed them all the way to the dormitory. If it wasn't for his rationality telling him to hold it in, he would definitely have rushed out and snatched her from Jiang Tianhao's back. Then, he would have thrown that rascal into the lake to feed the fish. Ji Yuqi lowered her eyes slightly. "I thought you wouldn't want to see me." On New Year's Eve, the 2 of them had quarreled very fiercely. Shenja explained seriously, "I'm very busy. There are some problems at the Shin Corporation." Before he returned to the country, the entire Shin Corporation was controlled by Shin Jianhao and Shin Yu. 99% of the company's middle and senior management were their people. Although he was the vice president, he had no real power and couldn't do anything. He spent a month and a half to change the Shin Corporation. Half of the middle management was replaced. Shin Jianhao was furious and held a board meeting to condemn his actions. He threw out a document on the spot. The document contained all kinds of unbearable records of the middle management. Some of them used their power for personal gain, some accepted bribes, and some colluded with rival companies. Every record had real evidence, which made the shareholders speechless on the spot. Those shareholders, including Shin Jianhao and Shin Yu, only then did they know that Shinja, who had been ignored by them, was not to be underestimated. Before he returned to the country, he had already premeditated. In the future, the Shin Corporation would be stirred up a bloody storm. Shin Jianhao regretted calling Shinja back, but it was already too late. Ji Yuqi didn't know that he had already turned the Shin Corporation upside down. She thought that he was being suppressed by Shin Yu and had a hard time. She wanted to comfort him, but didn't know how to say it, so she simply changed the topic. "Before you came, why didn't you tell me in advance? It's quite far from the company to the school. You came here so hastily." If you didn't meet me, wouldn't it be a wasted trip? Shenja raised his eyebrows, a faint smile appearing in his charming phoenix eyes. I saw your timetable. You have a class tonight. I remember it very clearly. Ji Yuchi opened her mouth slowly. Okay. I admire you. A smart person's brain was indeed different. The smile in Shinja's eyes deepened. He liked to see this woman's deflated look. It was much cuter than her fake perfect smile. The two of them were silent for a while. He suddenly said, "What did you think of what I said that night?" Ji Yuchi didn't react for a moment. What did you say? He looked at her steadily. Be my personal chef and I'll avenge you. At the mention of this, Ji Yuchi's face immediately turned ugly. Her voice was a little sharp and impatient. No need. I'll take care of my own matters. You don't have to worry about it. Why? Why did he have to tear apart her disguise and see her ugly side? She couldn't calm down. She turned around and grabbed the door handle, wanting to escape again. However, he grabbed her arm tightly. His low but gentle voice reached her ear. You're angry because I investigated you? It's not that I don't trust you. It's just that. He paused. In the end, he said the words hidden in his heart. I just want to understand you. Ji Yuchi's body stiffened. She didn't dare to look back at him. Her voice was dry as she said, Your intentions are good. I'm very grateful to you. However, those things are my private matters. I hope you won't touch them again. The more you get to know me, the more you'll realize that I'm not the kind of girl you think I am. You'll be disappointed. She felt that her tone was a little harsh. She added, If you want to eat the food I make, you can look for me anytime. In this life, the person she wanted to make up to the most was him. She would do her best to treat him well. Shenja frowned. He didn't understand. He just wanted to treat her well. Was that not allowed? After a moment of silence, he let go of her arm. She quickly opened the door and jumped out. Drive carefully. She stood by the roadside with a sweet smile on her face. It was as though nothing had happened between them. The black Maybach sped on the road. Shenja leaned against the back seat. His eyes were slightly closed and his thin lips were pursed. The atmosphere in the car was stifling. Aze glanced at Shinja through the rearview mirror and said lightly, Young master, you don't understand women at all. Awesome novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 809. Shinja slowly opened his eyes and glanced at him sharply. His voice was cold. Do you know her better than I do? Aze's face was expressionless. At least I have two sisters. Shinja was very familiar with Aze's two weird sisters. He silently lit 2 candles for Aze in his heart and then signaled him to continue speaking with his eyes. Women are animals who say one thing and mean another. They say they don't want you, but they really want you. They say they don't want you to care, but in fact, they want you to silently help them settle everything. They act like they don't care, but in fact, they want you to chase after them and value them. Aze's taciturn image was completely different. He endlessly imparted his experience to Shinja. When he said, of course, this only represents a portion of women. Shinja's brows were so tightly furrowed that they could almost squeeze a mosquito to death. Obviously, with his single-celled emotional intelligence, those women who say one thing and mean another must have nothing better to do. Couldn't he just say it clearly? Aze glanced at his expression and could guess his thoughts. He slowly said, according to my observation, Miss G doesn't belong to that type of woman. Shinja's eyebrows twitched. His eyes were full of murderous intent. Then why did you talk so much nonsense? Aze was intimidated by Ji Yunshu's murderous glare. He coughed dryly and continued, Miss G is a very prideful person. Even if she doesn't want you to meddle in her affairs, you can do it secretly. One day, she will realize how good you are, young master. Shinja pinched his eyebrows. You can shut up now. After living for so many years, this was the first time he felt that he was not capable enough. It was imperative to buy a few books on female psychology. Early the next morning, Ji Yuqi leisurely dressed up and went downstairs with Lin Yuxi's help. Jiang Tianhao stood by the roadside. He was wearing a beige coat and holding a breakfast in his hand. His handsome figure attracted the attention of many girls. The girls who knew him greeted him warmly. He smiled gently and distantly until Ji Yuqi's figure appeared. The smile on his face was like a blooming spring flower, almost blinding his admirers. Yuqi, is your leg better? His moist eyes were filled with concern. Ji Yuqi stroked her hair and smiled. I'm much better now. Senior, why are you here? It's not convenient for you to walk, so I bought breakfast for you. As he spoke, Jiang Tianhao's gaze fell on Lin Yuxi. He smiled apologetically. If I had known that classmate Lin would be here, would have bought an extra set. Lin Yuxi's expression was indifferent. It's okay. Ever since Yuqi asked her to help take photos and post posts to slander Jiang Tianhao, she knew that Yuqi did not like Jiang Tianhao. Of course, she did not like him either. She always felt that this man was too greedy and did not have good intentions. Otherwise, she would not have helped Yuqi. Sensing the other party's coldness, Jiang Tianhao felt a little uncomfortable. Ji Yuqi smiled and helped him out. Yuqi, go and have breakfast first. I'll see you in the classroom. Lin Yuxi nodded. Jiang Tianhao naturally took over Lin Yuxi's position and held Ji Yuqi's arm. She felt embarrassed and struggled. It's okay. I can walk on my own. She pretended to be shy and glanced at the people staring at them. It's better to be careful. A sprain can be serious. Don't aggravate your condition. Jiang Tianhao insisted on supporting her and whispered gently. He did not care about the people around them. Ji Yuqi was helpless and shy. The atmosphere was a little awkward for a moment. At this moment, a white BMW stopped in front of them. Ji Bowen pushed the door open and greeted her with a concerned expression. Yuqi, how's your ankle? Sister, are you okay? You didn't come home last night. I was worried to death. Ji Yunhan also jumped out of the car. Dad, I'm fine. I just accidentally sprained my ankle. Why are you all here? Ji Yuqi looked at her concerned relatives and felt warm in her heart. Last night, she pretended to sprain her ankle because it was inconvenient for her to go home, so she casually made up an excuse. She did not expect that her father and brother would still be worried. Sister Chichi, why didn't you tell us that you sprained your ankle? If my friend didn't tell me, we would still be hiding it in the valley. Yizisu's delicate figure also got out of the car. Ji Yuqi immediately understood. So this was what had happened. Jiang Tianhao had been showing off his love for Yizisu in front of the dormitory early in the morning, and Yizisu had immediately led her father and the others here. She must have wanted her father to see the sweet love between Jiang Tianhao and herself. Sure enough, Ji Bowen had already noticed Jiang Tianhao, who was holding Ji Yuqi's arm. His face immediately darkened and he said in a deep voice, "This student, you are?" Ji Yunhan also noticed Jiang Tianhao. He snorted and pushed Jiang Tianhao to the side. He quickly supported Ji Yuqi and then supported his sister as if they were facing a great enemy. He took a few steps away from Jiang Tianhao. What are you doing? Ji Yuqi pretended to be dissatisfied and muttered a few words in a low voice. She then looked at Jiang Tianhao worriedly. An unnatural expression flashed across Jiang Tianhao's handsome face, but he quickly calmed down and smiled politely. Hello, Mr. Ji. My name is Jiang Tianhao. I'm Yuqi's senior. Jiang Tianhao. Ji Bowen frowned and thought for a moment. This name sounded a little familiar. Uncle Ji. Yizisu walked to Ji Bowen and reminded him considerately. It was Senior Ji Bowen who saved Sister Chi-Chi from the lake. Ji Yuqi pouted. Dad, I ran into a criminal last night. Fortunately, Senior Jiang came in time. We have to thank him properly. Ji Bowen felt a lingering fear when he heard that his daughter had run into a criminal. He also had a good impression of Jiang Tianhao's courageous actions. His expression softened a lot. Student Jiang, I'm very grateful that you've saved Chi-Chi twice. It's Chi-Chi's birthday in a few days. I'd like to invite you to the Ji family as a guest. You have to do me the honor. Jiang Tianhao smiled. His attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. You're too serious, Mr. Ji. I only did what I could. It's my honor to be able to attend Yuchi's birthday party. Ji Bowen looked at him deeply and didn't say anything else. He reminded Ji Yuchi a few more times, then asked Ji Yunhan to leave. One of them had to attend a meeting at the company, while the other had to go to school. Neither of them could be delayed. Before Ji Yunhan got into the car, he glared at Jiang Tianhao warningly. He didn't like that man. He hated that man very much. Anyone who tried to steal his sister was a jerk. In less than a day, the news that Jiang Tianhao and Ji Yuchi were dating spread throughout the school. There were even more ridiculous rumors that Ji Bowen rushed to school to see what his future son-in-law looked like. Ji Yuchi sneered when she heard these rumors. Lin Yushi looked at her and asked curiously, "Why do you hate Jiang Tianhao so much?" Ji Yuchi raised her eyebrows. Because he's eating from the bowl and looking at the pot. He thinks that he can play the daughter of the Ji family like a fiddle. Let him play then. Lin Yushi felt deeply. He's indeed a jerk. Jiang Tianhao, whom they called a bad guy, was still taking good care of Ji Yuchi as usual. When he accidentally mentioned the rumors on campus, he guiltily expressed that he wanted to clarify it with everyone. Ji Yuchi smiled gently. Senior, rumors stop with the wise. We don't have to take them seriously. Jiang Tianhao immediately looked hurt and affectionate. Yuchi, I actually hope that those rumors are true. Ji Yuchi replied to him with a shy smile. Jiang Tianhao was slightly startled. Then, his eyebrows curved as he quietly held her hand. Her fingers moved slightly, but she did not pull them back. In less than an hour, photos of the two of them holding hands and looking at each other sweetly were exposed on the school forum. It confirmed the rumors that they were dating. After this matter was made public, Tang Feng and Gu Fifan went to talk to Ji Yuchi at the same time. Ji Yuchi played Tai Chi and neither admitted nor denied it. However, her serene smile still triggered the two of them. Tang Feng returned depressed. He clearly did not like Yuchi, but when he heard that she had a boyfriend, he felt as if someone had snatched away his treasure. Yes, he felt humiliated and indignant. Ji Yuchi was his fiancée. Which fiancé would feel good after being cuckolded? Gu Fifan's eyes were malicious. He believed that Ji Yuchi did not like Jiang Tianhao. It must be Jiang Tianhao, that despicable person, who caused this matter to spread. Damn it, he would not let that bastard off. Thanks to Yi Zisu's secret activities, the Ji family also found out about this matter. Ji Bowen immediately flew into a rage. He had never been so angry at his daughter before. Chen Tingfang pretended to hold his arm and tried to calm him down. Ji Yunhan wanted to put in a good word for his sister, but was secretly tugged by his sister. He cleverly kept his mouth shut. Ji Bowen glared at the pale Yuchi and said sternly, "Follow me to the study." Ji Yuchi followed him into the study. As soon as the door was closed, tears rolled down her face. She pitifully called out, "Dad." No matter how angry Ji Bowen was, he could not help but soften when he saw his daughter's pitiful appearance. He sighed and said, "Chi-Chi, break up with Jiang Tianhao immediately. You can't have any contact with him." Seeing the blue veins on her father's neck throbbing with anger, Ji Yuchi didn't feel good either. However, for the sake of her plan, she had to follow the script. With tears in her eyes, she asked, "Dad, why? Why can't I like Jiang Tianhao?" Ji Bowen pressed the space between his eyebrows. Last time at school, he could see that Jiang Tianhao and Yuchi's relationship was not ordinary. However, he did not adopt a high-pressure policy. Instead, he planned to observe slowly to see if the young man was reliable. At the same time, he also sent people to investigate Jiang Tianhao's background. After many twists and turns, the result was that Jiang Tianhao was actually Jiang Tianhao's son. If Jiang Tianhao knew what happened that year, then it was impossible for him not to know who Yuqi's father was. However, he actually had no grudges with Yuqi. This made Ji Bowen suspect that he had other motives. If Jiang Tianhao did not know what happened that year and only found out the truth after he married Yuqi, then how would he treat Yuqi? Ji Bowen did not dare to imagine. Ad Shinwu 799. Chapter 8:10. No matter what the situation was, Ji Bowen would not allow his daughter to have any contact with Jiang Tianhao. However, Ji Bowen did not intend to tell Yuqi about the grudges of the previous generation. He thought for a long time and said in a low voice, "Chi-Chi, the gap between you and Jiang Tianhao is too big. You won't be happy together. Listen to me and break up with him. You and Tang Feng are a match made in heaven." Ji Yuqi was no longer the naive little girl in her previous life. She could tell that her father was lying. He must have something that he could not say. Now, she could not ask him directly. She could only pretend to be wronged and cry. "Dad, how can you despise the poor and love the rich? You were a poor boy who had nothing, but later, you built a career with your own efforts. I believe that Tianhao can do the same." Ji Bowen could not help but think of the situation when he started his business. He also thought of the things that Jiang Tianhao had done. His face darkened again and he said firmly, "Chi-Chi, I'm doing this for your own good. Although Jiang Tianhao looks very good on the surface, he is actually very shrewd. I'm afraid that you will be deceived by him." Ji Yuqi bit her lip. There was some hesitation on her beautiful face. Ji Bowen knew that his daughter was struggling in her heart. He put his arm around her shoulder and said gently, "Chi-Chi, I'm more experienced than you, and I can see people more accurately. Jiang Tianhao is not someone you can control. Listen to me and don't contact him anymore. You grew up with Tang Feng and have a good relationship with him. I've discussed with your grandpa Tang. We'll take advantage of the birthday party to settle your relationship. What do you think?" "No," Ji Yuqi said in a panic, "Dad, I'm not suitable for brother Tang Feng. He doesn't like me, and I don't like him. Dad, give me some time. I'll deal with my relationship with Jiang Tianhao. Don't force me to get engaged to brother Tang Feng, okay?" Although the engagement between the Tang and Ji families had been set long ago, it was only a verbal agreement and had never been announced to the public. Ji Bowen originally planned to announce the engagement and cut off the relationship between Yuqi and Jiang Tianhao. However, Yuqi said that there was no romantic relationship between her and Tang Feng, so he had to change his mind. After all, he did not want his daughter to be unhappy. Ji Bowen thought for a long time. He looked into Yuqi's eyes and said slowly, "Chi-Chi, I won't force you. I hope you don't let me down." Ji Yuqi nodded heavily and apologized in her heart. "Dad, I'm sorry. I've made you sad again. But please believe me. I'll handle it well." Ji Yuqi's 21st birthday party would be held in the Ji family's villa. Many celebrities were invited. Chen Tingfang was very busy. In order to show her benevolence as a stepmother, she had personally written all the invitations. In addition, she had also meticulously prepared a gift for Ji Yuqi that she would never forget for the rest of her life. Yi Zhisu, on the other hand, was busy scheming with Jiang Tianhao. They were trying to figure out a way to seal the relationship between Jiang Tianhao and Ji Yuqi so that Ji Bowen would have no choice but to admit it. Ji Yuqi stayed in Ji Yunhan's room. Although her brother was only in his teens, he was a computer genius. She asked him to create a mobile phone virus. As long as he hacked into someone's phone, he could listen in on other people's calls. In less than 2 days, the kid created the virus and sent it to Yi Zhisu and Jiang Tianhao's phones in the form of pictures. All their phone conversations fell into Ji Yuqi's ears. As night fell, the Ji family's garden was brightly lit. People dressed up walked through the luxurious hall. From time to time, the sound of wine glasses clinking could be heard. The older generation gathered together to talk about their careers or family, while the younger generation gathered in twos and threes to play. The music in the hall suddenly stopped, and a beam of light shone on the spiral staircase. Everyone's eyes were attracted by the woman who slowly walked down the stairs. She walked leisurely, wearing a red strapless evening dress that was perfectly tailored and ironed to accentuate her graceful curves. Her face was bright and beautiful, and her phoenix eyes held a trace of a smile. Under the luxurious crystal lights, she was like a red peony in full bloom. She was so beautiful that it could cause the downfall of a country, but she did not feel vulgar. She was born with a noble aura. She was like an ancient empress who was the mother of the world. That honor and bearing made all the women present feel timid. Yi Zixu stood beside her. She had a completely different style. She wore a white evening dress that made her white skin look like it could be broken with a flick of a finger. Her delicate eyebrows were slightly smiling, and her temperament was elegant and refined. She was like a quietly blooming hibiscus. If one only looked at her dress, she was also very beautiful. She was so beautiful that she was fresh and refined. However, when she was compared to Ji Yuqi, she seemed a little petty. She did not have the domineering aura of a peony. Yi Zixu also knew this, but she didn't care. Her goal tonight was to serve as a foil to Ji Yuqi. The higher Ji Yuqi was raised, the harder Ji Yuqi would fall. However, when she saw Jiang Tianhao staring at Ji Yuqi with infatuation, her high spirits suddenly fell to the bottom like a roller coaster. No, it can't be. Tianhao can't fall in love with Ji Yuqi. It's just an act. Chen Tingfang held Ji Bowen's arm, and the two of them appeared in front of everyone lovingly. Ji Bowen gave a speech and thanked everyone for attending Yuqi's birthday party. Then, he announced that he would set up a foundation in Yuqi's name to help disabled children. For a moment, the applause was like thunder. Everyone present knew that Ji Bowen loved his daughter dearly. Of course, they had to cater to his taste. They all praised Yuqi for being beautiful and sensible. Ji Bowen was happy inside, but on the surface, he had to say a few words of modesty. Ji Bowen led the three children to meet their relatives and friends. The atmosphere was just right. Suddenly, the door was pushed open and a handsome figure strode in. He was wearing an expensive black suit, which perfectly complemented his impressive figure. A few strands of hair fell over his forehead, revealing a pair of charming phoenix eyes. His deep eyes were as beautiful as a lake in late autumn. He had a proud and upright nose and a sharp chin. His facial features were perfect like a god. He exuded the aura of a king who looked down on the world. As he walked forward, the crowd automatically parted to make a path for him. His gaze was focused on the female lead in the crowd. Even when the people around him greeted him, he did not respond. It was as if she was the only one in his world. Ji Yuqi was stunned. She did not expect Shenja to come. The Shen and Ji families were in different industries and had no personal relationship. She believed that her father did not invite anyone from the Shen family, but he came in such a high-profile manner. Was it because of her? While she was in a daze, Ji Bowen had already walked up to him and said with a smile, "Young Master Shen, what a rare guest." Shenja smiled faintly. "Uncle Ji is too polite. Just call me Shenja. Today is Yuqi's birthday. How can I not come?" Ji Bowen muttered in his heart. This young Master Shen rarely attended banquets. Moreover, the relationship between the Shen and Ji families was only so-so. What was the meaning of this? Several thoughts flashed through Ji Bowen's mind, but the smile on his face did not change. He sighed and said, "Good, good. Heroes indeed come from the young. If I were like your father and had such a capable son, I would wake up smiling even in my sleep." Ji Yuqi was embarrassed. Father, the relationship between Shenja and Shen Jianhao was not as close as the outside world said. They could be said to be natural enemies. Aren't you just touching the pot that doesn't boil? She hurried forward and smiled as she stretched out her right hand. Young Master Shen, I'm very happy that you can come to my birthday banquet. Seeing that soft snow-white hand, Shenja's cold gaze softened. The corner of his lips curled up slightly. He elegantly bent down and gentlemanly picked up her right hand and gently kissed the back of her hand. His warm lips brushed against the back of her hand like a soft feather gently brushing across the surface of a lake, creating circles of ripples. Ji Yuqi's heart trembled. She only wanted to shake hands with him, but he actually kissed her hand in the Western way. His actions were elegant and gentlemanly. His eyes were clear and his expression was normal. No one suspected that he had other motives, but it still made the young women present jealous. They wished that the person who was kissed on the back of her hand was them. Yi Zixu looked at his handsome figure and was momentarily absent-minded. She was jealous of Ji Yuqi's good luck. Why was Ji Yuqi able to chat and laugh with those noble young masters at the banquet, while she could only serve as a foil to her? Why was even the young master of the richest family, the Shen family, looking at her in a new light? Yi Zixu was not reconciled. She hated it. Ji Yuqi was chatting with Tang Feng's grandmother, Madame Tang. She pretended to inadvertently look into the distance. Shen Zhou was standing in the middle of a group of celebrities. He was like a noble king. Wherever he stood, he was incomparably dazzling, overshadowing the men around him. Even the female companions of those men were staring at him with eyes full of affection. Madame Tang was already a shrewd old woman. When Ji Yuqi looked in Shenja's direction for the second time, she could not help but laugh and teased, "You and you were very close when you were young. Why are you so distant now that you've grown up? You didn't even speak much tonight." Ji Yuqi was stunned, but she quickly reacted. Tang Feng was also standing around Shenja's circle. Granny Tang thought that she was peeking at Tang Feng. She pursed her lips and smiled, saying gently, "Granny Tang, don't make fun of me. No matter how old we are, Brother Tang Feng will always be my brother in my heart." Madame Tang's heart sank. Brother? How could he be her brother? Originally, they had agreed to announce the marriage between the Tang and Ji families at the birthday party, but Ji Bowen suddenly changed his mind. Could it be that Yuqi did not like you, Madame Tang's heart was in turmoil. Ji Yuqi smiled and changed the topic at the right time. Madame Tang wanted to test the waters. A group of young boys and girls came to look for Yuqi, so she could only give up and say with a smile, "Yuqi, don't sit around with an old woman like me. Entertain your friends and have fun." Ji Yuqi left with a smile. Madame Tang looked at her back as she walked away, then looked at her precious grandson, Tang Feng, who was handling the crowd with ease. She felt very upset. Yu once told her that he did not want to marry Yuqi. She thought that he was joking and did not take it to heart. She did not expect that the relationship between the two of them would become more and more distant. She decided to go home later and have a good talk with Tang Feng to see if there was any possibility between him and Yuqi. Come and see. Hongcha 866. Chapter 811. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. In the brightly lit garden, a handsome man in a black suit stared at the red wine stains on Ji Yuqi's dress. He was chatting with his companions with a wine glass when he suddenly felt someone bump into his arm. The red wine in the glass spilled all over Miss Ji's dress. Ji Yuqi glanced at the stains on her chest and abdomen and smiled. It's okay. She put the wine glass in her hand aside and glanced at her friends around her. She politely said goodbye. I'll go upstairs to change my clothes first. Enjoy yourselves. Jiang Tianhao was the first to come out and said warmly, Yuqi, do you need me to accompany you? Ji Yuqi smiled. No need, senior. I'll be back soon. In the hall, Shenja was holding a glass of red wine and standing in the middle of a group of businessmen with a cold expression. He seemed to be listening carefully to their conversation, but in fact, his attention had been following Ji Yuqi. Seeing her walk upstairs, he quietly glanced at a corner. Aze, who was dressed in black and had no sense of presence, immediately followed her upstairs quietly. Ji-Yuchi came out after changing her clothes. She had just taken 2 steps when a tall figure blocked her way. She secretly looked at the man. He was handsome and had a sincere smile on his face. Unfortunately, his eyes betrayed him. They were full of ambition and calculation. Yuchi, do you remember me? I'm Chinifei, Zisu's cousin. Chinifei pretentiously brushed the hair in front of his forehead and raised his eyebrows handsomely. Ji-Yuchi smiled. So it's Chingomzi. Nice to meet you. What Chingomzi? Don't be so formal. You're Zisu's sister. You can call me cousin too. Chinifei stared at Ji-Yuchi with infatuation. She had changed into a black pearl tube dress and looked like a mermaid princess from the deep sea. She was dazzlingly beautiful. He couldn't help but reach out to touch her beautiful face. Ji-Yuchi's eyes flashed with disgust. She turned her face to avoid his fingers and smiled faintly. Cousin, what's the matter? Chinifei's bones softened when he heard her call him cousin. He retracted his hand and smiled. Yuchi cousin, I have something to talk to you about. Let's go to your room. Ji-Yuchi blushed and said shyly, it's not convenient. It's not inconvenient. What I want to say is very important. It has something to do with your boyfriend, Jiang. Chen's eyes were burning. Ji-Yuchi was curious. How do you know about Jiang Tianhao? Chinifei raised his eyebrows. Have you forgotten that I'm also a student at Capital University? A friend of mine knows Jiang Tianhao. Speaking of which, I know him better than you. You don't want to be deceived by him, do you? Ji-Yuchi bit her lips and seemed hesitant. Chinifei continued to fan the flames. Jiang Tianhao isn't a good person. If you don't want to hear it, I won't say it. Then, he turned and left. Wait a minute, Chinifei raised his eyebrows smugly and turned around with a concerned face. It's not convenient here. Let's go to your room. Ji-Yuchi hesitated for a bit and said, let's go to the guest room. My room is too messy. Chinifei didn't object. His original goal was to go to the guest room next to the study. He knew that she was wary, so he purposely suggested going to her room so that she would say to go to the guest room. The Ji family's guest room was beautifully decorated. There were 2 pots of heather flowers on the windowsill. One was pink and the other was blue. It was very beautiful, but the smell wasn't that pleasant. Fortunately, the window was open, so the smell in the room wasn't strong. The fragrance of the flowers in the room was mixed with the smell of Chinifei's perfume. It smelled strange. Ji-Yuchi suddenly felt a bit hot. She fanned herself with her hand and said impatiently, cousin, what are you trying to say? Chinifei saw that her cheeks were dyed with a faint layer of crimson, which made her look even more beautiful. He quietly curled his lips and said in a hoarse voice, cousin, I suddenly feel a little thirsty. Can you pour me a glass of water? There was a glass of water on the table. Ji-Yuchi handed it to him and said anxiously, tell me after you finish drinking. It's so hot here. The smile in Chinifei's eyes deepened. He drank the tea in the cup and approached her step by step. When she was caught off guard, he suddenly reached out and hugged her in his arms. He lowered his head to kiss her. She was shocked and pushed him away in a flurry. Cousin, what are you doing? Chi-Chi, I like you. I like you very much. Give it to me. He held her in a daze, his hand stroking her body skillfully. He was secretly pleased with himself. With his superb skills and the effects of those aphrodisiacs, Ji-Yuchi would definitely fall at his feet. Just as he was fantasizing, he suddenly felt a pain in the back of his head. His vision turned black and he fell to the ground. Ji-Yuchi kicked him in disgust. Then she took out his phone from his trouser pocket and found Zisu's number. She sent a text, things have changed. Come to the guest room quickly. After sending the text, she grabbed Chinifei's body and threw him onto the bed. Then she covered his head and feet with the quilt. When Yizisu received the text, she was hiding in a corner with Jiang Tianhao. When she felt the vibration of the phone, she reluctantly separated from him. Tianhao, cousin said that things have changed and he wants me to go to the guest room. I'll go up first. I'll let you know when I'm done. Yizisu trusted Chen Yifei very much. When she heard that things had changed, she wanted to rush over immediately. Jiang Tianhao was different. He didn't trust anyone except himself. He suspected that there was a trap, so he stopped Yizisu and said, "Let me go. If anything happens, I'll let you know." Okay. Yizisu was vaguely unhappy. The door of the guest room was not locked. There was a gap. Jiang Tianhao pushed it gently and the door opened. However, the room was very dark. There was no light. He pressed the switch, but there was no response. He guessed that Chen Tingfang and the others might have done something to make it easier for Chen Yifei. Using the light from his phone, he could clearly see the situation in the room. The blanket on the bed was bulging high, so there should be 1 or 2 people lying inside. He tiptoed toward the bed. Just as he was about to lift the blanket to check, a hand suddenly reached out from under the blanket and slapped his phone to the ground. Then, it forcefully dragged him onto the bed. Yizisu was chatting with her friends, but she felt a little uneasy. Tianhao had been upstairs for a few minutes, but he still hadn't contacted her. Could it be that he liked Ji Yuqi and took the opportunity to make Ji Yuqi real? The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. Her phone suddenly vibrated. She unlocked it and saw a message from Chen Yifei, "It's done. Come up alone." According to the original plan, after the matter was settled, Chen Tingfang and Yizisu would be responsible for taking the guests to the guest room. Although Yizisu didn't know why things had changed, she still chose to follow Chen Yifei's arrangement. Yizisu went upstairs alone. She walked to the door of the guest room. It was dark inside. She whispered Jiang Tianhao's name, but there was no response. She had to use the light of the phone to quietly rub the bed. She cursed in her heart. She didn't know what Chen Yifei and Jiang Tianhao were doing. She walked to the bed. Just as she was about to lift the quilt, a hand stretched out from under the bed and grabbed her ankle. She screamed in fright. The hand suddenly pulled hard, and she fell to the ground with a plop. She was in so much pain that she almost fainted. The hand pressed on a certain part of her waist, and all the strength in her body seemed to disappear. She had no strength to struggle. She could only let the person throw her on the bed. She seemed to be pressed against something hard and uncomfortable. She moved her body and wanted to escape. An arm suddenly wrapped around her waist and hugged her tightly. "Who are you? Let me go." Yizisu was anxious and scared. She was about to cry. What the hell was going on? The air was filled with the strange scent of heather flowers. Yizisu had experienced it before. She knew what the scent was like. It was the scent of a man's passion. Her mother said that the flowers had aphrodisiac effects, so they deliberately placed 2 pots in the guest room. But now, Yizisu regretted it. She was unknowingly bewitched by the scent of the flowers. Coupled with the burning body on top of her and the large hands rubbing against her sensitive parts, her heart was filled with desire. She really wanted to be loved by Tianhao. Yizisu couldn't help but hug the body on top of her. She called out in a daze, "Tianhao, I love you, Tianhao, cousin, Ah. Cousin, you're so beautiful, so mesmerizing." The head on her chest affectionately sucked on her buds, and from time to time, a low gasp came from his mouth. Yizisu suddenly woke up. She was so scared that her heart almost stopped beating. She frantically pushed away the person on top of her. No, cousin, it's me. I'm Zisu. We can't do it. Cousin. I like you so much." Chen Yifei felt that his body was about to explode. His mind was blank, and he could only rely on his instinct to tease the person on top of him. He wanted to make Ji Yuqi, that little slut, feel pleasure under his body and feel like dying. Cousin, you can't do it. It's me. I'm Zissou. Feeling the hot and hard part squeezing between her legs, Zissou's tears kept falling. Her rationality told her that she couldn't do it, but the scary thing was that her body actually wanted to be filled by that thing. No, how could she do this? She hated herself so much. But she didn't have the strength to refuse. Even her body was faintly anticipating it. Feeling that thing ready to go, Zissou bit her lips in despair and cried bitterly. At this moment, she suddenly heard Jiang Tianhao's angry roar. Bastard! Then, with a bang, the man on top of her was kicked off the bed. Before Zissou could breathe a sigh of relief, she heard the door open. A group of people appeared at the door. Click, the lights were turned on. At the door, Ji Bowen and Chen Tingfang were leading a group of banquet guests. These guests heard that Ji Bowen had collected several sets of very precious stamps, so they followed the host to the study to take a look. They didn't expect to hear screams and cries coming from the guest room in the corridor. Madame Ji immediately said that they should check it out. So, the door was opened, and the room was full of spring scenery, the second young miss of the Ji family, who was as pure and elegant as if she had walked out of a painting, was actually lying naked on the bed with a similarly naked man. And on the floor, there was another man who was completely naked as well. The young girls present covered their eyes and screamed at the same time. The older generation awkwardly turned their heads to avoid this erotic scene. Welfare, Hongcha 866. Chapter 812. Shenja walked at the end of the crowd. His cold eyes glanced slightly. After seeing what had happened, he withdrew his gaze and slowly retreated down the stairs. His slightly lowered eyelashes hid the faint smile in his eyes. So that's how it is. Chi, well done. The scream came from Zissou. She angrily pulled the quilt and covered her body. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Why did this happen? Was she tricked by that bitch Ji Yuqi again? Lying on the floor with his white buttocks exposed, Chenifei was still in a state of delirium. He breathed in the fragrance of the heather and drank the water mixed with aphrodisiac. Even if he hugged a sow now, he could still treat it as a fairy and have sex with it. Ji Bowen looked at the lewd scene in the room and was so angry that all the blood in his body rushed to his head. His eyes burned with anger and his lips trembled. However, he was a legend in the business world and was not someone to be trifled with. He still had some rationality left to salvage the situation. He said in a deep voice, Han, please invite the guests to my study. Ji Yunhan had been hiding behind the crowd for a long time. When he heard this, he calmly invited everyone to move forward. His calm and graceful manner made many people secretly nod their heads. Among these people, there were many who wanted to stay and watch the show. However, they had to leave some face for the Ji family. Therefore, they acted as if nothing had happened and happily went to the study to look at the stamps. Chen Tingfang was so angry that she wanted to slap Zissou. However, Zissou was her only daughter and her hope for the rest of her life. Even if she was disappointed, she could not watch her daughter being destroyed. She could only force a smile. Tianhao, you look so calm. I did not stop you from dating Zissou. How can you be so careless? Ife, you know that he will go crazy when he is drunk, but he still dares to drink so much. Housekeeper, call 2 people to help Chen Xiaoye upstairs to sober up. Jiang Tianhao was unconscious after being put on the bed. He was in a daze when he suddenly heard Zissou crying. Then he found that Zissou was under Chenifei's body. He was so angry that he cursed, bastard, and then kicked Chenifei out of the bed. Until he was caught in bed by a large group of people, his brain was running fast. He did not know what went wrong and caused the current situation. He didn't know what to do, but after hearing Chen Tingfang's words, he immediately understood. His face revealed an ashamed expression as he mumbled, Auntie, we drank a little and couldn't control ourselves for a moment. Ji Bowen was so angry that he almost set the room on fire. Jiang Tianhao, that bastard, was lying through his teeth. He was Yuchi's boyfriend. How could he get together with Zissou without breaking up with her? How could he have sex with her? How could he do that? How could he do that? How could he? As for that bastard Chinifei, he was even worse. Ji Bowen did not believe Chen Tingfang's words of drunkenness. That bastard kept saying, cousin. Was he not referring to Yi Zissou? Chinifei actually dared to covet his own cousin. If he was not a bastard, what was he? I'll give you 10 minutes. Come to my study when you're done. Ji Bowen angrily threw down these words and turned to leave. If he stayed any longer, he was afraid that he would not be able to control himself and would want to hit someone. After such a scandal, the guests who had attended the banquet quickly took their leave. When Ji Yuchi came out of her room, she was faced with an empty hall. Wine glasses were strewn about, giving off a feeling that everyone had left at the end of the song. She picked up a glass of red wine and took a sip. A tall and slender figure walked quickly to her and asked in a low voice, "Is what happened in the guest room true?" Ji Yuchi glanced at him. Tang Feng, who was favored by the heavens, had an ugly expression on his face. His eyes were still. She avoided his gaze and faintly said, "Yes, it's true." Tang Feng's mind went blank, and the blood drained from his face. He did not go upstairs with the others, so naturally, he did not see the erotic scene. However, when he heard the whispers of the others, he still had a trace of hope that they were slandering Yi Zissou. When he received confirmation from Yuchi, all his beautiful fantasies about love were shattered. In his heart, Yi Zissou was a pure and kind goddess. How could she do such a thing? Ji Yuchi could only sympathize with him. Other than that, there was nothing else. She did not stay here to accompany him. She walked out of the hall. The scenery in the garden was still beautiful, and the moonlight was very charming. However, she was not in a good mood, because in her previous life, she, Ji Yuchi, was the one whose reputation was ruined. She sat on the hanging chair and slowly closed her eyes. She could not help but think of what had happened in the past. That night, her dress was also dirty. She went upstairs to change, but Chinifei blocked her in the corridor and tricked her into the guest room. There were aphrodisiac flowers in the guest room. She felt that something was wrong with her body. Then, Chinifei hugged her tightly, kissed her, and caressed her. She wanted to push him away, but she did not have any strength. Then, Jiang Tianhao barged in and beat Chinifei up. She was tormented by desire and could not help but hug Jiang Tianhao, who had saved her. At this moment, Chen Tingfang led the guests to put on a show of catching them in the act. In order to protect her reputation, Ji Bowen, who had always disapproved of the relationship between Yuchi and Jiang Tianhao, had no choice but to lie. He said that Jiang Tianhao was Yuchi's boyfriend. This was better than saying that she was humiliated by her cousin in name. However, paper cannot wrap fire. Soon, the scandal of Chinifei raping Ji Yuchi spread throughout the city. Jiang Tianhao pretended to be deeply in love with Ji Yuchi. He did not care about the past and firmly followed Ji Yuchi, officially becoming her fiancé. Ji Yuchi thought that he really loved her and even felt that he owed her. She felt that she had dragged down his reputation. She did not expect that in order to get her father's approval, he would collude with Chinifei to humiliate her. Thinking of the humiliation she had suffered in her previous life, Ji Yuchi's dry eyes gradually moistened. She bit her lip hard and clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably. Suddenly, she felt a weight beside her. A warm body pressed against her arm. She opened her eyes abruptly and glared at the person who had come. The next second, her eyes widened. She said in surprise, "Why haven't you left yet?" Under the moonlight, her smooth and fair cheeks were like fine mutton fat jade. Such a beautiful face should not reveal a sad expression. She should be happy and blissful. Shenzhou was bewitched by the moon. He could not help but reach out and gently wipe away the tears at the corner of her eyes. He said gently, "I'm waiting for you." Her eyes widened even more. Waiting for me to do what? Shenja smiled faintly. Personally give you a birthday present. She blinked and wanted to say something, but he opened his other hand. A bracelet inlaid with an aquamarine lay quietly in the palm of his hand. The dazzling brilliance was incomparably resplendent under the moonlight. He put it on her right wrist and said gently, "This bracelet and necklace happen to be a pair. Do you like it?" Ji Yuqi lifted her wrist slightly. The bracelet flowed around her wrist like a lake. It was dazzlingly beautiful. She narrowed her eyes and laughed softly. "It's very beautiful. I like it very much." "Thank you." Chi-Chi. What? Ji Yuqi admired the bracelet on her wrist seriously. She did not notice that a certain someone had become intimate with her. "Can I kiss you?" Shenja's obsidian-like eyes shone brightly as he looked at her expectantly. Ji Yuqi was petrified. Was this Shenja? When did he become so devilish? He actually used such a serious expression to discuss such an ambiguous matter. She was already speechless. "Chi-Chi, can I kiss you?" Shenja repeated. His handsome face inched closer to her. She quickly pushed his face away and laughed dryly. "What are you doing? Don't joke around." Shenja looked hurt. "I'm not joking around. I'm seriously asking for your opinion." Ji Yuqi's little heart thumped. She turned her face away awkwardly and said in a flustered voice, "Well, it's getting late. You should hurry home. Be careful on the road." As soon as she finished speaking, she lifted her skirt and ran away in a panic without a care for her image. Shenja had turned into a devilish man. She could not handle him at all. Shenja watched helplessly as his beloved little girl ran away. He sat in silence for a long time. Then, he took out a small notebook called Love Notes that he always carried with him. He wrote, March 20th, wanted to kiss Chi-Chi, but was rejected by Chi-Chi. After he finished writing, he thought for a while and added a few words at the end. So sad. Ji Yuqi ran into the living room as though she was being chased by a ferocious beast. She bumped into Jiang Tianhao, who was coming down the stairs. His handsome face was pale, and his clear eyes were filled with pain. He walked towards Ji Yuqi step by step. His voice was hoarse as though he had suffered great torment. He said, "Yuqi, do you believe me?" Ji Yuqi smiled miserably. Her beautiful face was filled with pain. "What does it matter if I believe you or not? Senior, you're now Zisu's boyfriend, right?" She bit her lip and spat out those words with difficulty, "I congratulate you." She covered her face and ran away sadly. He suddenly grabbed her wrist and said anxiously, "Yuqi, believe me. I really didn't do it on purpose. I was knocked out by someone. When I woke up, it was already too late." Ji Yuqi's back was to him, and her lips curled into a vicious smile. "I believe you. Of course I believe you, because I knocked you out and threw you onto the bed. If it weren't for the fact that Shinifei won't wake up for a while, maybe you two could have made love. What a pity." Her body trembled slightly. He thought that she was crying sadly, but she was actually trying her best to suppress her desire to laugh. She lamented, "It's already settled. Senior, we can only blame ourselves for not being fated to be together." She pried his fingers away and ran upstairs while covering her face. Jiang Tianhao was left alone downstairs. His right hand was still in the air as he stared at her delicate back in disappointment. Yi Zisu stood at the corner of the first floor. She could clearly see Jiang Tianhao's expression. She couldn't help but clench her fists in anger. In the study, the two of them were harshly scolded by Ji Bowen. After that, she secretly told Jiang Tianhao that she suspected Ji Yuqi had done something to cause the situation to turn around. However, Jiang Tianhao didn't believe her. He said that he believed that Ji Yuqi really liked him. He believed that Ji Yuqi didn't have such malicious intentions. His words made Yi Zisu furious. If Ji Yuqi wasn't malicious, then was she? Wasn't she doing it for their future? She wanted that woman, Ji Yuchi, to be completely ruined so that she could vent the anger in her heart. Yizisu's affairs had spread throughout Ing City. Those with daughters used her as a negative example to teach their daughters. Those with sons taught their sons a lesson to never mix with a woman like Yizisu. Beauty novel, Shinwoo 799. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.